Chapter 5092. Chen was still lying on the ground, motionless. The protective space had not been broken. But the slaughter spirit contained another kind of energy. Everyone was very familiar with this energy. It was the soul power of the lawbreaker. Mysterious and powerful. For many years, the lawbreakers, as the natives of this place, used the laws of Broken Law City and their own soul power to suppress the spirit spellcasters, causing them to always lower their heads. Therefore, they were very familiar with this power. Seeing it now, they were shocked and terrified. If this power came from Chen, then Chen was no longer a pure lawbreaker. Spirit spellcaster and soul power were the same body. This was an even stronger soul destroyer. Everyone was shocked. Ape Bert, who was already kneeling on the ground and did not have much life left, was filled with regret after hearing these exclamations. He finally knew the reason for all of this. Perhaps the soul power treasure did not exist. The reason why Chen was able to block the lawbreaker's attack was because he also had soul power in his body, but it had not awakened. It had to be said that before he died, Ape Bert had infinitely guessed the truth. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Ape Bert's heart was filled with regret and unwillingness. Originally, he had his own mansion and also had many subordinates. Although life was boring, his life was not in danger. But now, he even lost his life. Sure enough, the first person Chen wanted to kill was him. Unfortunately, there was no regret to speak of. When he fell, he faintly saw Chen move. How should everyone deal with the awakened shadow destroyer? Unfortunately, this was not a problem that Ape Bert should consider. Chen did move. He woke up from his coma. His body was filled with powerful energy, as if it would never be exhausted, endlessly growing and multiplying. His heart was beating strongly, and energy was constantly gushing out from his heart, converging in all parts of his body. However, he had not broken through yet. Because he still lacked a trace of comprehension of the laws. Only by comprehending could he reach the Six Forces realm. However, he now had the foundation to resist the Six Forces realm. That was soul power. After falling unconscious, his consciousness seemed to have become stronger again. A portion of the soul power that was originally in his mind and could not be mobilized had already become controllable. He glanced at the fallen Albert, then glanced at the floating slaughter spirit beside him. He seemed to have guessed something. Looking ahead, all the Six Powers realm cultivators were looking at him in fear. Between them, there was a guardian. Chen had already awakened, but the guardian had not disappeared. Buzz. Chen activated his soul power. He activated the slaughter spirit with his soul power. Boundless killing intent burst out from the slaughter spirit as it flew forward. At such a close distance, a Six Forces state cultivator only had time to raise his hand before his head was pierced through. It was too fast. There was no way to react. This was also the greatest advantage that spellbreakers had over spirit spellcasters. Chen, on the other hand, had a rare item like the slaughter spirit, so his attack power was even stronger. It could be said that in the past, Chen had controlled the spirit of slaughter by relying on the connection between the two parties. This time, however, he was using his true soul power. It was like spending real gold and platinum, and the effect was naturally obvious. The Six Realms cultivator screamed in pain. He felt as if his soul was about to collapse. Pu. The light flashed again, and the slaughter spirit walked back and forth. The Six Realms cultivator's body fell backward. When the others saw this, there was a hint of fear on their faces. The killing intent around them immediately dissipated, and they ran to the back. At this moment, everyone was terrified. Chen glanced at the two dead people. While taking their gains, he chased after them. In the mine, there were mournful screams one after another. The Six Realms cultivators died one after another. The others were waiting outside, including those Six Realms spellbreakers. During this time, someone sent a message back saying that they had found Chen and were about to surround him. If nothing unexpected happened, Chen would definitely die. Therefore, everyone was waiting for the news of Chen's death. As long as Chen died, the real battle for the treasure would break out. During this time, the entire mine seemed to tremble without warning. Everyone's heart tightened, but the abnormality quickly disappeared. No one paid much attention to it and waited quietly. In the end, they saw the Six Realms cultivators running out in fear. As they ran, they shouted for the Soul Destroyer. Everyone was puzzled and did not understand what had happened. At this moment, 2 bloody holes suddenly appeared on the head of a terrified Six Realms cultivator, and his body fell straight to the ground. A person appeared behind him. It was Zi Chen. Run! The Six Realms cultivators ran frantically with only fear in their eyes. Along the way, their companions had already fallen and died. Zi Chen was like the Grim Reaper who reaped lives. He followed behind them and took one life after another. Some of them still had some sense. They soared into the sky and ran into the distance. Some had already forgotten their flying skills and ran straight for the crowd. The slaughter spirit followed closely behind. With 2 thuds, a Six Realms cultivator fell. This time, the people behind saw it clearly. He also finally understood what those exclamations meant. Shadow Destroyer. Those who had spiritual techniques and soul power were extremely rare, and their status was even more noble. Seeing Zi Chen's killing methods, the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was stunned. Shadow Destroyer? How can it be a Shadow Destroyer? Phoebe exclaimed, his face full of disbelief. Doesn't he only have a soul power treasure? Why does he have the soul power of a spellbreaker? Butterball and Kant also found it unbelievable. Exclamations rose and fell all around. No one believed that all of this was real. But the Six Realms cultivators had used their lives to verify it. It could not be fake. Looking at the real corpses on the ground, everyone was shocked. All the spiritual casters in the Six Forces realm had run away. To them, staying here was a dead end. Those who could not escape had also become corpses. Zi Chen chased for a while and stopped. After all, there were too many people running around. He could not catch up to many. The crowd had already dispersed. Everyone looked at Zi Chen in shock. At this moment, they saw the birth of a Shadow Destroyer. Not to mention the spirit casters, even the spellbreakers had a look of disbelief on their faces. It seems that the Black Storm back then was not a soul power treasure, but his own soul. Spicer's expression changed. It's just that he had not awakened then. Now, he has. Obviously, he had guessed wrong. But because of this, he had harmed many people. At the very least, Ape Bert and the others had targeted Zi Chen because of that soul power treasure. In the end, they had lost their lives for nothing and did not obtain anything. At this moment, Zi Chen's gaze swept towards Spicer. The spirit casters of the Six Forces realm had all run away. The only person who had an absolute grudge against Zi Chen was Spike. Both sides faced each other. It was hard to say whether they would live or die. Looking at Zi Chen's meaningful expression, Spicer's expression changed. Then, he turned and left. He flew into the air. Without knowing what was going on with Zi Chen, he clearly did not dare to go against him. Spicer flew into the air and ran away. But Phoebe and the others could not do this. They had an even greater grudge against Zi Chen. Zi Chen walked forward. Run! Phoebe shouted and turned to run. Chapter 5093. Phoebe and the others ran away as fast as they could because they would lose their lives if they did not run. Their feud with Zi Chen had long reached a point where they would not rest until one of them died. Along the way, there was no lack of mockery. D***MNit, how did he become a Shadow Destroyer? They could not figure it out. Lu Yarrow had fled early in the morning. Zi Chen's strength had long exceeded his understanding. Zi Chen moved forward and chased after the enemy. Butterball, run! What are you waiting for? Phoebe and the others were running away. When they turned their heads and saw that Kant was still standing there foolishly, they all shouted. Obviously, they did not dare to stop and could only shout as they ran. After a moment of hesitation, Butterball and Kant stretched out their arms and stopped Zi Chen. Stop! Zi Chen looked at Kant. Can you let them go? I'll give you martial crystals. Kant immediately took out a piece of martial crystals. Although I only have one now, I'll be able to get the other 5 soon in exchange for their lives. They had no choice but to do so, because in this situation, none of the people present had the ability to fight against Zichen. Run! If Zichen was determined to kill, there was nowhere to run. Therefore, he could only think of this method. Zichen stopped and glanced at Kant. Of course, Zichen had nothing to say to Butterball. The other party's actions that day could be considered as timely help. He stepped forward and patted the other party's shoulder. I've said it before. Among all of you, you're the one who can live the longest. Follow me from now on. When Zichen said this in the past, it was a great humiliation to all the spellbreakers. However, it was undoubtedly an honor to say it today. Because Zichen was no longer who he used to be. He had become a shadow destroyer. This should be the noblest existence in Spellbreaker City. Those so-called rules were a complete joke in front of him. Among the crowd, Marcus was extremely excited. During Zichen's most difficult time, who still believed in Zichen and was willing to help him? Other than Butterball, it was Marcus. The crowd had not left yet, but they had dispersed far away. To the people present, the Shadow Destroyer seemed to be a legendary existence. Now that he was able to see it with his own eyes, it was truly shocking. Zichen turned around and glanced at the mineral vein. This was really a blessed land. Ever since he came here, he had resolved many crises. If he left this time, he might never return. He walked to the entrance of the cave and clasped his fist towards the killing crystal mine. The others in the distance were puzzled, but they were only puzzled. No one dared to ask. After that, the crowd dispersed. Everyone had left. This included Marcus as well. Zichen was already a shadow destroyer. His status was even higher than spellbreakers of the same level. Once he returned, no one would be able to use rules to suppress him. Butterball and Kant were still there. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave, but he didn't dare to, because Zichen hadn't said anything. Zichen approached and glanced at him. Let's go too. Butterball followed behind Zichen, his heart filled with emotions. It was dark. Zichen decided to stop and rest. Butterball went nearby to get firewood. Zichen sat cross-legged and felt his body. His body was full of energy, but he hadn't broken through. He was still at the 5 strengths realm. The bonfire rose, illuminating the surroundings. The others had probably left in the dark. As far as they could see, they were the only bonfire. There were spellbreaker beasts around at night, but they obviously didn't dare to come close. Whether it was Zichen or Kant, their auras had a deterrent effect on the spellbreaker beasts. The sky brightened. Zichen got up, and the two continued on their way. A few days later, they returned to their original encampment. Miao Pengfei and Hu Zhang received the news and immediately ran out. After Zichen left, the two were very worried. After all, many people had chased after him. Among them, the lowest realm was at the 4 strengths realm. But when they saw those people fleeing into the city in a sorry state a few days ago, the two heaved a sigh of relief. Zichen stayed here for a day. Butterball and Kant watched as Zichen chatted and laughed with the 2 weak 3 strengths realm cultivators. Then, the two entered Spellbreaker City. When Zichen appeared, he saw many people. These people looked at the two of them curiously. Of course, they were mainly looking at Zichen. Not long after, 2 people appeared in front of them. Zichen had never seen the 2 of them before, but he could guess the identity of one of them. Eden. Back then, Hubert always mentioned this name. Last time, in order to ask for something on him, he even used this name to pressure him. As expected, the tall man said with a smile, "You are Zichen." "You are right. I am Eden." Eden, 7 strengths realm, spirit caster. The other person should be the spellbreaker. He looked at Zichen and said, "I am Bosch." Eden continued, "Zichen, I heard about what happened to you. I didn't expect Hubert to do such a stupid thing. Fortunately, you killed him. Otherwise, I would definitely punish him severely. How dare he play tricks under my nose? He is simply courting death." Eden chuckled and said, "But it's good. Hubert is dead, so his mansion is empty. You can go there and take his place." Compared to Eden, Bosch was much more direct. "Come with me. We will protect you from now on." Only then did Kant realize that the two of them were here to rope in Zichen. Thinking about it, since such a shadow destroyer had appeared, they naturally had to rope him in. Kant, who understood, felt that something was wrong. Why were there only two of them? Where were the others? One had to know that in Spellbreaker City, there were many 7 Strengths realm cultivators. Why didn't they come? Or was it some kind of tacit agreement? Zichen cupped his fists at the two of them and said, Zichen appreciates the good intentions of the two lords. But after Zichen entered the city, I have already gotten used to my own residence. I don't plan on moving for the time being. That's good, that's good. Eden did not insist. He nodded and said, the Yuan mansion is open to you at any time. You can go whenever you want. Bosch also nodded at Zichen. Then, the two 7 Strengths realm cultivators left just like that. This made Kant a little confused. It was that simple. Not saying more. Wasn't this kind of recruitment a little too insincere? Zichen did not think much of it. Before he came, he had already asked Kant what he did on a daily basis. Kant told him that spellbreakers like them had almost no rules. If there were no special circumstances, no one would care about them. They could do whatever they wanted. Now that Zichen had become a shadow destroyer, he naturally received the same treatment. If Zichen wanted to, he could stay in his room for a few years without coming out. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had energy. Spellbreaker City was not responsible for distributing energy to them for free. Zichen returned to his residence, which was still next door to Marcos. He informed Kant that he would come over early the next morning. He was going out to hunt. This time, Zichen wanted to hunt a 6 Strengths realm spellbreaker beast. Chapter 5094. Zichen returned to his residence and saw that Marcus's door was closed. He did not know where he went. Walking into the room, he began to count his spoils. This time, he killed several 6 Powers realm cultivators. They all had storage items. Zichen opened them one by one and saw pure energy and spiritual energy. Other than that, there were also a few martial crystals. As for martial crystals, there was none. Next, he began to count the pure energy and spiritual energy. He had to admit that this way of obtaining them was faster. During this time, he also found a few special materials. He did not know what they were for, so Zichen kept them. The next morning, Butterball and Kant arrived on time. The two of them walked out of the city. This time, they were obviously going in a different direction. Along the way, when people saw Zichen, their expressions were filled with respect. Although Zichen was still in the 5 Powers realm, his battle strength was no weaker than that of the 6 Powers realm. Looking at the silent Butterball, Zichen asked, "What, you're not happy?" Butterball and Kant looked at Zichen, wanting to say something but stopped. Zichen smiled and said, "Did those fellows talk about you again? You didn't tell them that you saved their lives." Butterball and Kant shook their heads, "Not that." Zichen asked curiously, "Then what is it?" Butterball did not answer immediately. After a slight hesitation, he asked, "Do you know why only 2 people came to recruit you yesterday?" Zichen laughed, "What's the difference? According to my estimation, there should be a lot." Butterball said, "In this shattering law city, there are many big and small factions. They fight with each other for resources, experts, and anything else that can be fought over." Looking at Zichen's expression, Kant continued, "But yesterday, only 2 people came, don't you think it's strange?" Zichen smiled, "This should have nothing to do with me killing people, right?" Zichen had killed quite a number of 6 Powers realm cultivators outside, so he did not hold back at all. Because of this, he offended the other 7 Forces realm cultivators. As far as Zichen knew, this should be impossible. Butterball said, "That's not the reason. The main thing is, you will never be able to reach the 6 Forces state in the future." "What?" Zichen looked at Butterball with a strange expression. Right now, he was only 1 step away from the 6 Forces state. He could even feel that his body was filled with energy, and he was just short of comprehending the law. It's been a long time since a shadow destroyer appeared in Pofa City. Kant said, "Most of the shadow destroyers only exist in legends. But when I went back yesterday, Phoebe and the others told me that your condition is abnormal. It's an accidental awakening. He carefully looked at Zichen. In this kind of situation, if you suddenly have spirit power and spiritual magic power, then you will have no hope of breaking through in this lifetime. Of course, Zichen did not agree with this point of view. However, he did not argue with Butterball. They concluded that you have no chance of reaching the 6 forces state, so they lost interest in you. No matter how strong a 5 forces state cultivator was, he was still a 5 forces state cultivator. The two left Pofa City and walked into the distance. Along the way, they met some people. When they saw the two of them, their faces would reveal strange expressions. It was rare to see a spellbreaker and a spiritual magic cultivator walking together. But after someone explained, they all came to a sudden realization, and the way they looked at Zichen changed. The two of them did not meet anyone else. In Butterball's words, very few people walked this path because it was only available to those in the 6 forces state. People like Lu Yarrow, who could come here at the 5 forces state, were few and far between. And he relied on his weapon and armor. Although he followed the 6 forces state cultivators, he only played a supporting role. But ever since Lu Yarrow lost his weapon and armor, he lost the right to come here. Even spellbreakers in the 5 forces state did not dare to come here casually. The two of them walked for more than 10 miles and met another team of 5. Can't. Someone in the team recognized Butterball and immediately called out. It was Spicer. This spellbreaker in the 6 forces state had attacked Zichen back then because of his wrong guess, which led to the massacre outside the mine. Butterball glanced at Zichen. Zichen nodded slightly. Kant jogged forward. Zichen scanned the area in front of him. Among the 5 people, there were 4 spellbreakers and 1 spiritual magic cultivator. This caused Zichen to be somewhat surprised. After hearing Spicer's explanation, the other party also looked at Zichen in surprise. After a while, Butterball walked over with Spicer following behind. He looked at Zichen and said, Zichen, you can come with us and let Kant go back. Zichen shook his head. I don't trust you. Spicer's eyes turned cold. Zichen said again, and once I suspect you, I might kill you. Spicer's expression changed. Don't kill him. Kant is a little stupid, but he's not a bad person. After saying that, Spicer turned and left. Obviously, he was really worried that Zichen would kill them. Both parties parted ways and did not walk the same path. If we continue walking forward, we will reach the 6 forces state spellbreaker beasts. Kangda pointed to the front, where there was a mountain range. The so-called 6 forces state lawbreaker beast was in the mountain range. Here, wherever there are mountains, there will be or veins. It's the same here. But because there are too many 6 forces state spellbreaker beasts and their numbers are too strong, no one dares to mine here. As they walked forward, Kant introduced the situation here to Zichen. It was said that a long time ago, a spellbreaker faction found a precious or vein. But before they could mine it, they lost several 6 forces state spellbreakers. So they could only find other factions to join forces and annihilate the spellbreaker beasts here. Under the leadership of the 7 forces state spellbreaker beasts, they killed a group of spellbreaker beasts. But just a few days later, a second group of spellbreaker beasts came and killed everyone who was stationed here. After that, no other faction came to mine here. In the end, Kant said, if you're lucky, you can dig up some treasures here, such as martial crystals. Of course, for 5 forces state spellbreakers, martial crystals were still good stuff. But those who could come here were mostly 6 forces state spellbreakers. They did not come here to dig up a few martial crystals. The two of them walked into the mountains. Kangda's voice was noticeably softer, while Zichen's gaze swept the surroundings warily. He had never seen a 6 forces state spellbreaker beast. After walking for a few miles, Kant felt the pressure. His face turned pale. A bone stick appeared in Zichen's hand. He also felt a lot of pressure. After another kilometer, when the two of them were walking past a huge rock, a strange beast suddenly swooped down from above. It had a strange appearance. Its long teeth were like swords. It charged at Kant. Back off. As soon as Zichen said that, Kant immediately retreated. He held the bone stick tightly in his hand and smashed it forward. Buzz. Infinite power was injected into it. The bone stick began to vibrate, releasing a powerful aura. Bang! Chapter 5095. Chen had never seen a law-breaking beast in the six forces state, so it should not be weak. Therefore, he did not hold back in his first attack. With one strike, the law-breaking beast flew backward. After landing, its head seemed to be in a daze. Chen quickly went forward and struck again with the bone staff. This time, he used all his strength. While the beast was shaking its head, he struck again with the staff. The law-breaking beast howled and fell to the ground. Chen followed in a flash. This time, he did not strike with the staff. Instead, he struck with his left palm. Light swirled around his palm. The light crisscrossed. It was an attack that he had comprehended. When it landed on the law-breaking beast, its skin was instantly cut open. But it was only a superficial wound. Chen quickly retreated. Then, the slaughter spirit quickly went forward and sank into the law-breaking beast's head. Blood splattered. The howl turned into a scream. Ever since he had soul power, the slaughter spirit's power had become extraordinarily strong. Butterball and Kant looked ahead. Their eyes almost popped out. They watched as Chen stepped forward and finished off the battle in a few moves. That relaxed expression of his was almost unbelievable. The law-breaking beast in the six forces state fell to the ground, motionless. Blood kept flowing out of its 7 orifices. Chen held the bone staff and stood to the side. His face was slightly pale. He said, "It's indeed harder to kill than the six forces state. Just harder to kill." If other six forces state people heard this, they would probably want to die. When they went out, they would at least be in a team of 5. And they must be accompanied by a spiritual caster. The main thing was that they could resist. 5 people ganging up on a law-breaking beast. Even so, accidents sometimes happened. What are you waiting for? Come and take care of it. Chen looked at Butterball and said, "Do you want me to do it?" Butterball trotted over. Then, he took out a long knife and began to cut the law-breaking beast. Even if it was dead, the law-breaking beast still had a body. It had amazing defense. Butterball could only use his power and began to carefully break it down. Let's break a leg first and have a taste. After being here for so long, Chen had not eaten anything other than refining energy. Although he didn't need to eat at all, he still felt a little hungry. Kant nodded repeatedly. In this Shatter FA city, everything else was fine except for food, which was ridiculously expensive. Even he, a spellbreaker, had only eaten it once. It was only after Spicer had advanced to the six forces state that he invited them to eat there. After that, Butterball never went there again. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he felt that it wasn't worth it. Even the spellbreaker felt that it was not worth it. "Why don't we walk outside?" Butterball looked around. He was a little worried. After all, there were only 2 of them. He still couldn't fight. Chen could deal with 1 six forces realm spellbreaker, but what if there were 2? All right. The 2 walked to the border again. Along the way, Butterball had already picked up firewood. Although there was no seasoning, looking at the golden barbecue, the 2 still ate heartily. Butterball felt like he was about to bite his tongue off. It was too satisfying. Compared to the small plate in the restaurant, this was simply extravagant. At this moment, Butterball felt that following Chen was not bad. After eating, the 2 continued to go deeper and hunted another law-breaking beast. Something that required a team to complete was done by Chen alone. It had to be said that Chen was powerful and terrifying. After that, they didn't find anything else. Looking at the sky, Butterball suggested that they go back first. It was said that it was not safe to stay here at night. Even those teams with many people didn't dare to stay here for the night. Since they had found something today, the 2 began to return. When the sky was completely dark, the 2 returned to the city. One of them would be exchanged for resources by Butterball tomorrow. As for the other one, Butterball dissected it into several pieces. The 2 of them divided the loot on the spot. After returning, Chen went to look for Marcus. Marcus was very surprised by Chen's appearance and was also a little excited. I heard that you went out hunting today. How was it? Was a Six Forces realm law-breaking beast very difficult to deal with? Marcus said with a smile. Zichen was very grateful to Marcus. He treated him well. Zichen nodded and said, not bad. It was an eye-opener. Hearing Zichen's words, Marcus thought that Zichen had not found anything. He immediately comforted him, don't worry. Wait until you get familiar with it. Then you will definitely find something. Zichen smiled and then took out a portion of meat. He said, I don't have anything good for you. Just consider it to satisfy your craving. Marcus looked at the beast meat that filled the entire table in disbelief. This was extremely precious, both the meat and the bones. By the time he reacted, Zichen had already left. Marcus was very excited. It was not because of the beast meat that he had never seen before, but because even though Zichen had become a shadow destroyer, he still recognized him. It was just that he was more or less restrained in front of Zichen. On the same day, after Butterball returned, he immediately woke up his companions. After killing the first law-breaking beast, other than eating one of its legs, the remaining parts were divided between the two of them. It was almost half for each of them. So when Butterball took out the other half, Phoebe and the others were stunned. Butterball smiled and said, how was it? Not bad, right? They looked at Butterball with envy in their eyes. This half of the beast's body was very valuable. They did not expect Zichen to be so generous to him. Phoebe looked at the beast's body and said, it's not bad, but I advise you to stay away from Zichen in the future. What's the matter? Butterball asked in surprise. Phoebe did not answer. Instead, he asked, you know his situation, right? Butterball nodded and said, I know. He can't break through anymore. But Zichen, who's in the 5 strength realm, is comparable to a team in the 6 strength realm. Even if he can't break through, no one will dare to target him, right? You brat. Phoebe reached out and hit Butterball hard on the head. How long has it been, and you're already speaking up for him? Why, do you really think you can do whatever you want just because you have a shadow destroyer? No way. Butterball immediately shrunk his neck. I'm telling the truth. Today, Spicer met Zichen and invited him to join them. In the end, Zichen said that he did not trust them. He said that if he got angry, he would kill them all. So Spicer left. I'm not talking about that. Phoebe said, you know that Zichen is very strong, and the others are not stupid. But why didn't they try to recruit him? They think that Zichen can't break through, and that is not valuable. Valuable my ass. Phoebe was so angry that he laughed. In this place, it's all about using what you have. Who cares about value? I heard that there are people above who want to harm Zichen. Harm Zichen? How is that possible? Butterball could not believe it. Chapter 5096. Butterball, who had wanted to show off, became solemn after hearing Phoebe's words. This is a secret, so you better be careful. Don't get implicated. Phoebe warned again, and the others followed suit. Butterball left the half of the beast carcass and turned to leave. He didn't seem to be in a good mood. After Butterball left, one of them said, Phoebe, there's no need to scare him like that, right? If Kant gains something, it's a good thing for us, isn't it? At least for now, Zichen trusts him and is willing to keep him by his side. Phoebe glanced at that person. You think I'm stupid? I'm just warning him in advance to prevent him from getting into trouble. That Zichen is indeed a troublemaker. As for scaring him, if you believe it, you'll get it. The others looked at each other. Shadow destroyers were very mysterious, and they didn't know much about them. Phoebe waved his hand. All right, let's roast it and eat it. Although Zichen isn't a good person, this is good stuff. The next day, Butterball and Kant went to the Spellbreaker Hall to dispose of the 6 strength state Lawbreaker beast's carcass. However, Butterball hesitated. He didn't know what to exchange for. After thinking about it, he exchanged for 2 sets of martial crystal sources. These things weren't available on the first level. They could only be exchanged on the second level. To enter the second level, one had to be in the same realm or use the carcass of a beast to open the way. Of course, this was because he was a lawbreaker. If it were the spiritual spell hall, One couldn't enter the second level without being in the same realm. A 6 strength state law-breaker beast's carcass could only be exchanged for 2 sets. He took the spellbreaker sources and went to find Chen. Chen was a little surprised, but he accepted it. Breaking through the realm was indeed the most important thing now. Then he looked at Butterball and hesitated. He smiled faintly and said, "Take it." He directly gave the other party a martial crystal origin. With it, Butterball might be able to take another step forward and reach the 6 forces boundary. Butterball knew that Chen had misunderstood, so he didn't take the martial crystal origin. He said directly, "When I went back yesterday, I thought about it for a long time. Your situation is indeed very special, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a chance to break through." Chen laughed. "Why? Are you comforting me?" Kant shook his head and said, "No, it's just that your situation is very rare. It's a little strange." Then he looked at Chen. He didn't know what to say next. For example, "It's so strange that it makes one curious." The smile on Chen's face disappeared. He was not a fool, nor was he a youngster who looked young. He had lived for a long time and had seen countless schemes and schemes. He had even seen saints and villains. He instantly understood what the other party meant. "Are you going out with me again today? Good. Let's hunt some more law-breaking beast." Kant immediately nodded. The two went out of the city again. After walking for a long time, Kant suddenly said, "Why don't we try to go deeper today and not come back tonight?" Chen looked around. There was no one around. Okay. He had some questions to ask Butterball, but he felt that there was no need to ask. The word curious gave Chen a lot of thoughts. Perhaps he needed to break through as soon as possible. Before he broke through, staying outside might be the best result. But there was also a problem. If he stayed outside, there would be no resources to exchange. How could he break through? The two entered the mountain and killed the first law-breaking beast. It was finished in one move because it was a 5 forces boundary beast. Then, they continued to go deeper. Butterball stood behind Chen and kept a distance of 3 feet from Chen. This distance was enough for him to retreat quickly if he encountered any danger. Boom! A powerful energy shock wave. The first law-breaking beast of 6 forces boundary fell at Chen's feet. Butterball and Kant immediately went forward and collected the law-breaking beast's corpse. They brought it to a place not far away and prepared to dissect it. If they dissected it themselves, they would get more materials. If they sent the whole thing over, they would get less materials. "Come, let's go deeper," Chen said without looking back. Kant could only follow immediately. On this day, Chen killed 3 law-breaking beasts of 6 forces boundary. At night, the two retreated to the edge of the mountain range. They started a fire and barbecued meat. Fatty would occasionally look around, his expression full of vigilance. After all, he was only at the 5 forces boundary. The law-breaking beasts that appeared here were at least at this level. Chen threw the barbecued meat to him. Then, he took a portion and ate. Facing the food, Butterball was a little absent-minded. Chen added some firewood to the bonfire. "Tell me what you know about the shadow destroyers." Kant shook his head. "I've never seen a shadow destroyer. You're the first. We only know about them in various rumors." Butterball thought for a moment. It's said that the shadow destroyer's status is extremely noble. It even surpasses that of lawbreakers. They rarely appear in the periphery because their status is too noble. That's why they live in the core of Dharma-breaking city with the big shots. A shadow destroyer has the soul power of a lawbreaker. They also have the energy of a law caster. With the combination of the two powers, their combat power is extraordinary. They can be said to be invincible. Butterball told him what he knew. Just like the rumors, he knew nothing else. Chen asked again, "All these years, there hasn't been a shadow destroyer?" "No." Butterball shook his head again. After that, Chen did not ask any more questions. The night was silent. There was no danger. When the sky brightened, the two continued to go deeper and hunt law-breaking beasts. Today, they were a little unlucky. They only killed 2. After that, the two left early. Before the sky darkened, Chen began to refine the martial crystal source. The energy in the martial crystal source was absorbed by his heart like a clay ox entering the sea. During this time, there was no feedback of new energy. Chen was now only one step away from the 6 realms of strength. And this step was not lacking in energy, but in rules. Or it could be said to be an instant of enlightenment and the recognition of rules. He originally thought that the energy in the martial crystal source could help him. Now, it seemed that it was a little difficult. When the sky brightened, Kant left. He brought the corpses of the 5 law-breaking beasts back to exchange for the martial crystal source. Because Chen said that if one strand of energy was not enough, then he could get a few more. Since he had the means to kill law-breaking beasts, he could use numbers to make up for it. This energy also entered the heart, but did not flow out during this period. In Chen's spiritual sea, there was still a lot of soul power. However, he could only control a portion of it, which was pitifully little. It was like there was a mountain of gold in front of him, and Chen could only lift a stone on it. But even so, Chen already had the means to kill a 6 realms. It was hard to imagine what kind of combat power he would have once he completely controlled the soul power. The sky gradually darkened. Kant, who went back early in the morning, had not returned yet. Chapter 5097. It was enough time for a round trip, but Butterball did not come back. Chen looked at the sky and started a fire. He obviously did not think that Butterball had run away with those things. Even though those things were indeed very precious. Did something happen? But what happened? Did he encounter a 6 forces state lawbreaker beast? Or someone else? The former was unlikely, because 6 forces state lawbreaker beasts were rarely encountered in the periphery. And it would be difficult for a 5 forces state lawbreaker to kill Kant. As for the others, it was even more impossible. After all, a lawbreaker was noble. Who would dare to attack him? Chen guessed that something had happened in the city. In Kant's residence, Butterball held his head in his hands and squatted in a corner, his body trembling. His breath was very weak, as if he had been seriously injured. Phoebe and the others stood on the other side, looking at Butterball worriedly. A man in a black robe leaned back on a chair and said, "Have you thought it through?" Butterball raised his head and said timidly, "Sir, I really don't know where he is. I snuck out." The man in the black robe stood up and clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking. "So, you want to try again? Don't hit him. He'll die if you continue." Phoebe hurriedly said, "Kant, quickly tell him where Chen is." "I'm not lying. I stole Chen's things and snuck out." Butterball said again, "I don't know where he is. It seems that you won't give up until you see the coffin." A cold murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the man in the black robe. He walked towards Kant step by step. Kant was so scared that his body was trembling, but he still did not tell Chen where he was. Bang! Kant's body left the corner and rolled away. "You reckless dog. How dare you lie to me?" The black-robed man stepped forward and kicked Kant's head again. Kant let out a cry of pain as his body was sent flying again. "I've heard about your matter." A dignified spellbreaker actually became a dog for a spirit caster. The black-robed man repeatedly stomped his feet, landing either on the head or the chest. Facing this existence, Butterball could only try his best to hold his head. One kick after another. Hearing that booming sound, Phoebe and the others were frightened, but they didn't dare to resist. At this moment, they were also filled with anger. Phoebe couldn't help but shout, "Kangda, hurry up and tell us." "Yeah, just tell me where Chen is and everything will be fine." His other companions also spoke out. Obviously, they felt that it was not worth it to lose their lives for Chen. Butterball's aura grew weaker and weaker. The black-robed man was still kicking and scolding. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the door, "He's a spellbreaker, don't kill him." "Andrew, it's already dark, let's talk about it tomorrow." It was Spicer's voice. As a 6 forces realm spellbreaker, his words carried some weight. "All right, I'm tired from today, let's talk about it tomorrow. I hope you're still so tough tomorrow." The black-robed man glanced at Kant with disdain, then turned and left. After he left, Phoebe and the others immediately surrounded him. Looking at the weak Kant, Phoebe said angrily, "Why are you protecting him? Do you really want to die?" Butterball was silent. Sanglari took out a beam of energy and placed it in front of Kant. "I've known Chen for a very long time, and he's a troublemaker. Listen to Phoebe, stay away from him, or he'll kill you sooner or later." Kant took the energy and began to refine it, not saying a word during the process. "Think about it carefully tonight. Is it worth it?" Phoebe patted Kant's shoulder, saying, "I've secretly asked Spicer. That guy came from the depths, and is truly ruthless. If you go against him again, he'll definitely kill you. Being a spellbreaker won't save you. Think about it, for a Chen, is it worth it?" But no matter how they tried to persuade him, Kant didn't say a word. He was naturally afraid of death, but he also felt that it wasn't good to expose Chen like this. Chen said before, among the group, he was the most likely to survive if something happened. Although he wasn't good with words, he wasn't stupid. He began to refine the pure soul power, trying to recover as soon as possible. After his injuries were completely healed, the sky was still dark. Butterball quietly left the room and hurried in the night. It wasn't as dark as during the day. Fortunately, Kant was also a 5-strength state cultivator, so it wasn't difficult for him to move. He prayed silently in his heart that he wouldn't encounter a 6-strength state lawbreaker beast, or else he would definitely die. Even if it was a 5-strength state cultivator, it would be difficult for him to fight in the dark. It took more than twice as long as usual. Butterball finally saw the bonfire in the dark night. He quickly walked forward. Chen, who was sitting cross-legged, heard the movement and opened his eyes. In the dark night, his eyes were shining. "It's Kant." Chen's expression changed slightly. The other party shouldn't have come at this time. According to his estimation, the other party might have been delayed by something, and even if he came, it would be tomorrow. Butterball quickly approached. After seeing Chen, he took the martial crystal source and said in a low voice, "Hurry up and leave, someone wants to harm you." Chen took the martial crystal source, but didn't leave. He looked into the distance. "Hurry up. What are you waiting for?" Kant glanced at Chen. "Kant, you did well." At that instant, a voice could be heard coming from behind. After hearing the voice, Kant's expression changed tremendously. It was the person who had tortured him for the entire day. As expected, this is the only way he won't be suspicious of you. The voice continued, "You've succeeded, right? Is he dead?" Kant's face instantly turned pale. He glanced at Chen and tried to explain. Chen raised his hand and interrupted him, "Go wait at the side." There was no need for him to explain. Regardless of the person's intention, there was no way Chen would kill Butterball. If he really wanted to kill him, he would have done so a long time ago. The sky was slightly brighter. The person leading the group was a man in a black robe, followed by 4 people. One of them was Spike. He was not familiar with Chen, thus he wouldn't care if Chen was dead or alive, thus he had come up with a little plan. They did not leave, but hid in the dark. As expected, Kant was tricked, thus they followed him here. The plan was to protect Kant. Unexpectedly, after arriving at this place, Andrew actually used a few heart-wrenching words to kill Kangda with a borrowed knife. Luckily, Chen did not interfere. "It's not easy to find you." The man glanced at Chen. "Now, come back with us." Chen stared at him without saying a word. The man continued, "Don't worry, we won't harm you. However, the higher-ups need your cooperation to tell you something." Chen shook his head and said, "I don't trust you. It doesn't matter if you trust me or not, just come with me." Chapter 5098. Andrew looked at Chen indifferently as a cold smile appeared on his face. "Do you want to live or die?" Chen did not care about the threat of a 6-forces state cultivator. This was because he had already killed many of these people. He looked at Butterball. Kant wanted to explain, but Chen threw something at him. It was the martial crystal source. There were 2 of them. Kant looked at Chen in surprise. Chen waved his hand and signaled Kant to stay away. Andrew looked at Chen's action and said disdainfully, "Why? Do you want to challenge me?" Then, he laughed out loud. His laughter was full of disdain. However, The four people behind him did not laugh. Unlike Andrew, who came from the depths of Pofa City, the four of them were six forces state cultivators. Spicer, especially, knew Zi Chen very well. Right now, if Andrew could not stop Zi Chen, then what awaited them would definitely be death. If Zi Chen wanted to kill, the four of them would not be able to stop him. Interesting. Andrew noticed the abnormality of the four people behind him. He smiled faintly and said, "Since you're here, I might as well show you what I'm made of. I'll let you frogs at the bottom of a well see what true strength is." He made a provocative gesture at Zi Chen. Spicer and the others did not think highly of him because of his arrogance. They quietly stepped back and put some distance between them. That way, when Zi Chen killed Andrew, they would be able to escape in time. Buzz. Zi Chen did not hold back in the face of provocation. The massacre spirit flew out like a bolt of lightning and went straight for his opponent. Under the influence of his soul power, the massacre spirit was not only faster, but also more powerful. Even though he was only a 5 forces state cultivator, he could still kill a 6 forces state cultivator. Be careful. Seeing this, Spicer reminded him. Andrew's expression did not change much. He only extended his palm and then retracted 3 fingers. He only used 2 fingers to fight. In the next moment, something strange happened. The slaughtering spirit was caught between Andrew's 2 fingers, unable to move an inch further. This scene seemed to have frozen time and space, causing everyone's expressions to freeze. This included Zi Chen. His spirit of slaughter was caught between 2 fingers of the other party. How is this possible? Kant, who had already retreated, was also shocked as he looked ahead in shock. How powerful was Zi Chen's move? How could it be blocked so easily? Spicer and the rest, who had quietly retreated earlier, also looked in front of them in disbelief. Just this. Andrew sneered. The light in his hand flickered and the massacre spirit shot off into the distance. It sank into a large tree. Buzz. In the next moment, the massacre spirit trembled again and flew back to Zi Chen's side. Zi Chen's eyes were cold as he used all of his strength. Clearly, he did not believe that he would lose. Soul power swirled around, and the slaughter spirit's speed became even faster, its killing intent boundless. But in the next moment, it was once again caught between Andrew's 2 fingers. Die. Zi Chen's figure flashed and appeared in front of Andrew. He raised the bone rod in his hand and used his energy to quickly smash it towards Andrew's head. A frog at the bottom of a well. Andrew's expression was still disdainful. He reached out with his other hand and grabbed the bone rod firmly. No matter how hard Zi Chen tried, the bone rod could not break free from his opponent's hand. The energy contained in the rod was also suppressed by a strange force. Now you know what you're worth, right? Andrew lifted his leg and kicked out. Zi Chen's body flew backwards. He did not have the strength to fight back at all. Everyone was stunned. How could this be? Zi Chen flew several feet away, and the 2 weapons were in Andrew's hands. Many people wanted to get their hands on these 2 weapons. The reason why Zi Chen was killed was also related to these 2 items. But after so many people's schemes, they did not manage to get these 2 weapons. Who would have thought that they would be caught by Andrew so easily today? Spicer's eyes flashed. Could this be the method of the people in the depths? Zi Chen staggered to his feet. His eyes were also filled with shock. The gap between the 2 of them was too big. It was almost unbelievable. Either you follow me or you die. Andrew looked at Zi Chen and said indifferently. Zi Chen's figure flashed and rushed forward again. His opponent was only in the 6 forces state. It was impossible for him to be so powerful. There must be something wrong. He threw out a punch and went straight for Andrew. Golden light flashed and there were crisscrossing lights. This was the attack that Zi Chen had learned. Swoosh. Andrew's hand shook and the spirit of massacre went straight for Zi Chen. But when it got close to Zi Chen, it went around him. Then, the spirit of massacre circled around Zi Chen and continued to move forward to kill Andrew. At the same time, Andrew held the bone rod in his hand and smashed it towards Zi Chen. Bam! The powerful vibration destroyed Zi Chen's attack and caused his body to slide backward. The bone rod in Andrew's hand did not unleash its full power. Chen was only pushed back and was not hurt. In front of him, the spirit of massacre's third attack was blocked. Again, Chen rushed forward again. He seemed to have found the problem. During this time, the spirit of massacre kept trembling and the light of power flickered on its surface. Andrew held the spirit of massacre between his fingers so that it could not break free. Every time the spirit of massacre surged, it would disappear automatically. Then, the bone rod in Andrew's other hand smashed down again. This time, Chen did not choose to fight head-on. Instead, he reached out and grabbed the bone rod. Then, he kept urging the energy to gather towards the bone rod, trying to activate the true power of the bone rod. After all, the bone rod was his weapon. It was stronger in his hands. The bone rod tried to activate the power again and again, but the power disappeared like a clay ox entering the sea. Both sides were in a deadlock. It seemed that no one could do anything to the other. The others were confused. They did not know why it was like this. But in the next moment, Chen moved. He clenched his other hand into a fist and punched towards Andrew's face. During this time, his body twisted and avoided the other party's kick. Bam! The punch hit the other party's cheek. The powerful force sent Andrew flying. The bone rod and the spirit of massacre returned to Chen's hand. Everyone's expression changed again. How did it turn around? Chen looked at Andrew indifferently. The shock in his eyes had disappeared. Andrew stood up. He was not injured. Chen's attack was nothing to him. You saw through it? Andrew suddenly asked. Chen said, "You can devour my energy." Yes, the reason why the other party was strong was not because of his combat power, but because he directly absorbed Chen's attack power. For example, when the spirit of massacre came into contact with the other party's palm, the soul power attack on it was absorbed. The remaining power of the spirit of massacre was naturally unable to resist Andrew. The bone rod's attack was the same. The energy was absorbed by the other party's palm. When it landed, only the bone rod's power was left. Without the support of Chen's energy attack, both the spirit of massacre and the bone rod's power was limited. But Chen also noticed that when the other party absorbed his energy attack, he could no longer fight back. This was why his punch could hit the other party. Even if I stand here without moving, you can't hurt me at all. Come back with me, Andrew said coldly, otherwise, I will hold you back and the others can chop off your head at any time. At this moment, the advantage of having more people was revealed. He only needed one person, not to mention that he had brought 4-6 powers state cultivators. Chen did not reply. He turned and left. Chapter 5099. Chen turned around and entered the mountain range, which stunned the others. After all, on the surface, he did not lose, and his combat power was not weaker than Andrew's. But he retreated decisively. Andrew's lips curled into a cold smile. Let's go. The sky was already bright, and he followed behind Chen. Spicer and the other three could only follow after seeing this. Before leaving, Spicer glanced at Kant, using his cold eyes to warn him not to follow. Chen might go straight into the depths, and that was not a place where Kant, who was in the 5 forces state, could stay. Kant stared at Chen's back until he disappeared, then he let out a sigh. He turned around and left. Today's incident was strange in every way. How could the powerful Chen not be able to defeat a 6 forces state? Could it be that there was a secret in the depths that they, the Spellbreakers, did not know? Unfortunately, no matter what the secret was, it was not something that Kant could explore. He, who was in the 5 forces state, could not even protect himself. Taking one last look into the distance, Kant said in his heart, "Stay alive," and went back. Chen went deeper into the depths, and the few people behind him chased after him. "It's useless, the world is big, you can't escape from me." Andrew's voice came from behind them. Chen tapped his foot, stepping on big rocks one after another. His movements were very agile, like a monkey going deep into the depths. Andrew's lips were curled into a disdainful smile. Spicer quietly looked at Andrew. While he was shocked, he was also filled with suspicion. How could he ignore Chen's attack? He thought for a while, Then he mustered up his courage and asked, "Sir, was your previous technique comprehended from the rules?" The other three were also curious. After all, as spellbreakers, they knew almost everything in Pofa City. But they had never heard of such a technique. Rules? No, it's just an ability. Andrew glanced at Spicer and the other three. If you have the chance to enter the depths, you will have the same ability if you are lucky. Spicer and the others were surprised and happy. If they really had such a technique, they would be crushed if they encountered Chen. Swoosh. There was a spellbreaker beast in front, and it charged towards Chen quickly. Chen tapped his foot, and his figure quickly dodged. When he avoided the attack of the spellbreaker beast, he pushed his palm. The spellbreaker beast went straight behind. It rolled and landed on the ground, stirring up countless sand and stones. When it got up, it happened to see Andrew and the other four. Without the slightest hesitation, he charged forward. Andrew sneered and punched forward. Bang! Andrew's body slid backward, while the Six Forces State Lawbreaker beast rolled and fell to the ground. It was still not injured, and once again attacked the group. When Spicer and the others saw this, they shouted and attacked. The unique soul power attack of a spellbreaker fell on the spellbreaker beast. Under the joint attack of the four, the spellbreaker beast was quickly injured and ran away. Chen happened to be standing on a high ground at this moment, and he turned back to see this scene. This made him even more puzzled. It seemed that the other party only had the means to resist his power. Otherwise, why didn't he block the spellbreaker beast directly? The doubts in his heart flashed, and he continued to go deeper. However, this test also let him know Andrew's weakness. Next, it wouldn't be very difficult to get rid of Andrew. The spellbreaker beast ran away, and Andrew walked over from behind, continued to follow it. "Sir, can't you ignore the spellbreaker beast's attack?" Spicer asked curiously. "What's the point of that?" Andrew smiled proudly. "If you want to ignore it, you have to ignore the strongest shadow destroyer." Spicer and the others nodded. It seemed to be the case. Both sides had only fought a few times, and Chen was scared away. If it were not for Andrew today, they would probably have been killed by Chen. "Sir, Chen is a shadow destroyer. What's the matter with him?" In the forest, seeing that Andrew was in a good mood, Spicer asked the question in his heart. "He's just a guy who luckily awakened soul power, just lucky," Andrew said disdainfully, "and he'll stop at the 5 strengths realm for the rest of his life. He really can't break through?" Spicer said, "I have some understanding of him. He hasn't been here for long, but his speed of breaking through is really not slow. His combat strength is also outstanding among those of the same level. No matter how fast he broke through, once he becomes a shadow destroyer, it's impossible for him to break through again." Andrew said confidently, "It's not that I look down on him, but no matter how many martial crystal sources he refines, even if he finds a rare spellbreaker beast core, he can forget about breaking through." Andrew pointed to the sky, "Because the rules don't allow it. In this world, the rules are greater than everything." Looking at the few people who were still confused, Andrew said, "You don't know the reason because it involves some secrets that are only circulated internally. But sir, he's clearly an outsider. How did he become a shadow destroyer? There are always some fish that slip through the net. Perhaps they encountered some opportunity. This is not surprising. However, after his identity changed, he was destined to walk a dead end." The 5 of them followed behind. When they encountered spellbreaker beasts, Andrew did not make a move. The 4 of them dealt with them. They finally understood why such a powerful sir would bring the 4 of them along. It turned out that he had long expected Chen to run to this mountain range. Arriving at a high ground, Andrew looked at the figure jumping in the forest and shouted, "Stop running. Come back with me, and you can still live. If you continue running like this, you'll eventually encounter a powerful spellbreaker beast. At that time, only death will await you." Chen turned back and crooked his finger at Andrew, making a provocative gesture. Andrew's expression was a little ugly. He looked into the depths of the forest. Running like this was not the way to go. It did not matter if that guy died, but if he caused them to lose their lives as well, the gains would not make up for the losses. "Let's go back." Andrew did not intend to give chase. After all, This mission had been completed. He had obtained what he needed. In the distance, Zichen realized that Andrew had stopped chasing and did not go deeper. However, he did not immediately go to the periphery. Instead, he continued to stay here, just in case. Andrew retraced his steps and came to the place where he had fought Zichen. He said, "Keep an eye out. If he runs out, report immediately. Remember, don't kill him. After all, if he dies now, his corpse will disappear. We have great use for him." A Six Forces realm cultivator who had been arranged to stay behind hurriedly nodded. He had previously been worried that Zichen would find him and kill him with a stick when he came out. Now, there was no need to be afraid. As long as he saw him from afar, he would turn and run. Zichen, who was still in the forest, was ambushed by a spellbreaker beast. This time, he did not hold back. With the bone staff and the massacre spirit, he easily finished the battle. Just as the spellbreaker beast was about to die, a ball of light suddenly flew out from its body. This ball of light was unusually bright. This was a ball of light. Chapter 5100. The ball of light floated in front of him, causing his eyes to light up. Zichen was shocked at first, then he quickly scanned his surroundings. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he reached out and grabbed the inner core. He felt a rich and violent power, and the inner core in his hand was trembling slightly. So it was this. Zichen suddenly understood. He had once heard Kangda mention that if one was lucky enough, they would be able to obtain the inner core of the law-breaking beast after killing it. However, the probability was too low. The inner core was extremely valuable, far more valuable than the source of martial crystals. It was said that after refining it, a 5-strength realm cultivator had a 90% chance of breaking through. Now, Zichen was only one step away from the 6-strength realm. This inner core might be able to help him break through. He looked at the sky and decided to find a place first. There were mountains and rocks everywhere, and there was no place to hide. Zichen began to go deeper. He was not so arrogant that he dared to stay in the open at night. After an hour, Zichen found a cave. After confirming that there had been no signs of habitation for a long time, he walked in and blocked the entrance. Then, he began to refine the inner core. At night, the forest was filled with beast roars, and more law-breaking beasts began to appear. Zichen stayed in the cave, and the energy of the inner core continuously entered his body and was then absorbed by his heart. During this time, there was no feedback. Zichen was not in a hurry. He slowly refined the inner core and waited. After the sky darkened, the 6-strength realm lawbreaker who was guarding outside felt a trace of fear in his heart. Not only was he afraid of law-breaking beasts running out, but he was also worried that Zichen would suddenly appear and kill him. So, he extinguished the bonfire. However, he still felt unsafe, so he retreated into the distance, away from the forest in front of him. After another 2 hours, listening to the roars of the beasts, the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. Then, he gritted his teeth and went back. Compared to the mission, his life was obviously more important. The night was silent. In the cave, the inner core in Zichen's hand had consumed about 1/3 of its energy. However, his heart was still absorbing without feedback. Could it be that he had to wait until it was completely refined? Zichen had such a guess in his heart. The 6 Forces state cultivator came again during the day and stood outside the forest again. When the sky turned dark, he decisively went back. After repeating this process for 3 days, he still hadn't seen Zichen. He concluded that Zichen was dead. Thus, he returned with peace of mind. As for Andrew, he had left 2 days ago. Buzz. Zichen's Niden finally ran out of energy after 3 days. All the energy was absorbed by the heart, but there was no feedback. Zichen stood up and stretched his back, warming up his muscles and bones. Looking through the crack in the rock, the sky outside was very bright. First, he went out for a walk and found a place to roast a piece of meat to eat. Then, he returned to refine the martial crystal source. Even after refining all the martial crystal sources, he still failed to have a breakthrough. Zichen had no choice but to continue trying. A few days later, he obtained another Niden, but there was still no effect after refining it. Ordinary people only needed one Niden, but he had already refined 2 Nidens and many martial crystal sources. Finally, after refining the 3rd inner core, Zichen began to have doubts about his own abilities. Could it be that he really couldn't pass this final step? He tried to comprehend the rules, but he found that it was useless. The rules of heaven and earth seemed to be isolating him from the outside world, causing him to be unable to sense them at all. Walking out of the cave, Zichen walked aimlessly in the forest. After so long, no one caught up to him. Obviously, they wouldn't come again. As long as he didn't go out, Zichen would live a good life here. The prerequisite was that he didn't die here. In Pofa City, Zichen's sudden rise to fame caused people to talk about him for a long time. However, he soon disappeared, and there was no news about him. Gradually, everyone lost interest in talking about him and stopped paying attention to him. In the end, he seemed to have been forgotten. Only Butterball and Cant would often think of him. He was a flash in the pan, but he was very dazzling. Unfortunately, he disappeared in the end. Phoebe and the others would also talk about him. Every time, they would laugh heartily and say that he deserved to die. Marcus would also often think of Zichen, but he never dared to mention him to others. It was as if this name had become some kind of taboo. After Andrew went back, he came back again. He came to ask if Zichen had been caught. After learning that Zichen had not come out, Andrew asked people to keep an eye on Zichen. After that, he went back again. It seemed that even he didn't think highly of Zichen and thought that he had died long ago. Zichen stayed in the depths for a long time, aimlessly every day. At first, he would find a cave to hide in when the sky turned dark, but later, he gradually got used to it. As long as there was a big tree, he dared to rest on it. Moreover, he had walked all the way until now, and he didn't know where he was. On this day, Zichen had just killed a law-breaking beast when an inner core appeared in front of him. He calmly put away the inner core. He had been in the depths for a long time and had refined as many as 5 inner cores, but they were still useless for cultivation. Therefore, Zichen put away the rest of the inner cores. As for the corpses of the law-breaking beasts, Zichen also put them away. Suddenly, Zichen's expression changed slightly. He saw a figure in front of him. At this moment, it was broad daylight, and that figure actually appeared. A vanishing shadow beast. He had never seen a vanishing shadow beast in the depths. Since the figure had appeared, then where was the real body of the vanishing shadow beast? Should Zichen try to find it? Zichen didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the vanishing shadow beast seemed to be smiling at him. He frowned slightly. His figure flashed, and he stood on a high ground. He looked around. There were no other exotic beasts nearby. The figure still stood there silently. It was said that when the vanishing shadow beast attacked, its real body would hide in the dark, and the figure in front of him was an illusion. He still didn't find it. Squeak, 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 squeak. The figure in front of him seemed to be speaking, but he didn't know what it was saying. However, Zichen could sense that the other party didn't have any ill intentions. Then, he turned and left. After walking for a while, he turned back to look at Zichen. Zichen looked at him and didn't move. The other party looked at Zichen and didn't move either. Zichen hesitated and walked forward. The other party turned and continued forward. After walking for a few feet, he turned back to look at Zichen and found that Zichen had stopped. He also stopped. Zichen continued forward. The other party also continued forward. Every few feet, the other party would stop and look at Zichen. When he found that Zichen was following behind, he didn't stop. The other party was deliberately leading the way for him. Zichen's brows furrowed slightly. Was he planning to lure him to a certain place and then kill him? But he still followed behind. After walking like this for a few hours, the sky was about to turn dark. Once it turned dark, it would be the vanishing shadow beast's world. Zichen frowned again, hesitating whether to continue following. The vanishing shadow beast found that Zichen wasn't walking anymore. It started to babble, but unfortunately, no one could understand it. Then, he waved at Zichen. Zichen understood what he was doing and asked him to follow him. Was he going to die? Chapter 5101. The vanishing shadow beast babbled and said something that Zichen could not understand. Then it waved at him. Zichen understood. But he hesitated. The sky was about to darken. That was the time when the vanishing shadow beast would appear. Although he did not sense the other party's malice, it did not mean that it did not have any. But after some hesitation, Zichen still decided to go and take a look. After all, the vanishing shadow beasts he met before only knew how to devour souls. This one was different. If there was danger, it would not be too late to run. Even in the dark, he had a special eye technique and could see clearly. Seeing that Zichen had caught up, the vanishing shadow beast continued to move forward. But just like before, it turned back and looked at Zichen. After another 7 or 8 turns, the vanishing shadow beast suddenly disappeared. This made Zichen's expression change slightly. Just then, the other party appeared again, but only its head was exposed. It was smiling at him. It turned out to be a space barrier. Zichen had never seen a space barrier before. Now that he saw one for the first time, he was curious. Could it be that there are more vanishing shadow beasts living here? He followed in, but he was very careful. After meeting Andrew and realizing that the other party could restrain him, he was much more careful. After entering the ripples, Zichen seemed to have come to a paradise. There were green mountains and clear waters, and spiritual flowers and herbs were everywhere. The sky outside was already dark, but here it was bright. Everywhere he passed, there was a burst of floral fragrance. Zichen was very surprised. There was actually such a strange place in the depths of the mountains. If it had not led the way, he would not have found it. But why did the vanishing shadow beast bring him here? At this moment, the vanishing shadow beast was still walking in front, but it deliberately slowed down. Zichen looked around curiously until he saw a mountain. The mountain was black and extremely tall. It looked like the treasure left behind by Ji Shan. As he got closer, Zichen felt a strong soul power aura. It seemed to be triggering his soul power. Just as Zichen was puzzled, some figures appeared from the mountain. They were all vanishing shadow beasts. They had arrived at the nest of the vanishing shadow beast. When they saw Zichen, there was only curiosity in their eyes, but no malice. Squeak, squeak, squeak. No one knew what they were saying. The one that led Zichen in seemed to be explaining to everyone. Occasionally, it would look at Zichen and smile. Zichen couldn't see his smile, but he could sense it. Of course, he wasn't sure if his feeling was right. Zichen stood there and looked at the vanquishing shadow beasts. He did not feel threatened, so he did not act rashly. Soon, more people walked out of the Black Mountain. One of them was an elder. Compared to the illusory shadow vanishing beasts, he looked more like a human. However, after he began to walk, his body began to change. Like a shadow, he could disappear at any moment. Young man. The old man suddenly spoke. His clear soul power undulations caused Zichen to jump in fright. Who are you? Zichen looked at the old man. We are all vanishing shadow beasts. The old man's answer caused Zichen's expression to change again. He looked at those people carefully. They were almost exactly the same as the vanishing shadow beasts that devoured souls he saw in the outside world. Zichen asked, "Aren't you vanishing shadow beasts?" The difference of one word was like heaven and earth. For example, lawbreaker beasts and lawbreakers. The former was an animal, while the latter was a human. And they were people of high status. Vanishing shadow beasts. The old man smiled bitterly. That's right. That's our name now. Suppressing the curiosity in his heart, Zichen asked again, "You guys led me here, is there a reason?" The old man waved his hand and said, "Come and sit." He had been standing on the Black Mountain. Even the other vanishing shadow beasts were standing there. The one that led him here also walked up. Zichen walked forward. Although it was just a simple conversation, he could sense that these beings did not have any ill intentions towards him. Under the curious gaze of the vanishing shadow beasts, Zichen walked up the Black Mountain. His soul force surged within his sea of consciousness, causing even the black stone to tremble slightly. Then Zichen felt a special energy emerge from the Black Mountain. This energy entered his body. He did not reject this feeling. Instead, he felt very warm. What is this? Zichen asked curiously. This is the treasure of the vanishing shadow clan, the Soul Mountain. It's because of its existence that our remnant souls can survive. The old man looked at Zichen and sighed. But even with the help of the Soul Mountain, their minds are still incomplete. They can't speak and live like wandering ghosts. Fortunately, Xiao Wei saw you. The heavens have not forsaken the vanishing shadow clan. Hearing the old man's sigh, Zichen hurriedly explained, Elder, you misunderstood. I'm not from the vanishing shadow clan. I'm from the spirit clan. I just accidentally obtained soul power and was mistaken for a vanishing shadow. The old man looked at Zichen and smiled. It doesn't matter if you're from the spirit clan or the vanishing shadow clan. Since you're here, it proves that we're fated. Seeing that the old man did not care about his identity, Zichen did not care either. The old man looked at Zichen and continued, Do you feel that your realm has stagnated after obtaining soul power? Zichen immediately nodded. During this time, he had refined many nidans and martial crystal sources, but his realm had not improved at all. Even the heart and the black stone in his mind could not help him. The old man explained, This is because the vanishing shadows laws are chaotic and no longer complete. Without complete laws, you can't break through. Zichen was surprised. The world's laws can become incomplete. They used to be complete, but they were destroyed by the spellbreakers, so the laws are no longer complete. Zichen did not understand, so the old man patiently explained. It turned out that a long time ago, this world was controlled by the vanishing shadow. They were the absolute rulers. Until one day, a spirit caster came here through the Milky Way. At that time, there was a problem with the world's laws. Then, heaven and earth shook and the laws changed. A portion of the spellbreaker beasts suddenly evolved and became spellbreakers. After those spellbreakers turned into human form, they obtained soul power. But compared to the vanishing shadow, the spellbreakers and spirit casters only had a single power, so the vanishing shadow's dominance was not shaken. But as time passed, the world's laws were no longer stable. Finally, one day, those spellbreakers suddenly killed the shadow vanishing shadow. With lightning speed, they killed all the shadow vanishing shadow. The souls of the dead shadow vanishing shadow did not dissipate. In the end, they became remnant souls and wandered the world. Hearing the old man's words, Zichen was completely stunned. Those spellbreakers were actually evolved from spellbreaker beasts. And those they called vanishing shadow beasts were actually the remnant souls of the dead shadow vanishing shadow. Chapter 5102. Hearing the truth, Zichen's face was filled with shock. The shadow vanquishers he saw were all humans. Without any preconceived notions, Zichen looked at these figures again and found that they were all normal people. Some of the short ones were just children. At this moment, everyone was looking at him with obvious curiosity. No wonder Zichen didn't sense any threat earlier. They didn't know how to attack at all. Hearing the old man's explanation, Zichen understood that the figure outside Shattering Law City was only a remnant soul. It had long lost its mind and followed its instincts. Some could live a little longer after absorbing soul power. Some couldn't absorb soul power and would disappear with the passage of time. As for these people, they didn't need to absorb soul power because of the existence of the Soul Mountain. They didn't need to worry about death, but it was extremely difficult for them to recover their intelligence and memories like the old man. Why did the Shadow Vanquisher lose? Zichen asked, puzzled. Aren't they the strongest? The Spellbreaker somehow cut off a part of the rules and used it to refine something. It has a suppressive effect on the Shadow Vanquisher. Hearing the old man's explanation, Zichen thought of Andrew. In the last battle, the other party had completely suppressed him. All his attacks were ineffective against Andrew. But a Spellbreaker beast in the forest could defeat him. Zichen didn't understand the reason before, but now Zichen understood. Then Zichen looked at these figures and found that they weren't so scary anymore. Instead, they were much friendlier. Because they were the same kind of people. Suddenly, Zichen remembered something. Last time, the Spellbreaker attacked me, but he didn't seem to want to kill me. They need your power, the old man said. Chen didn't understand. The spellbreaker is very ambitious. They've been studying the rules and power of the shadow vanquishers and then creating new shadow vanquishers, the old man said. The old man said, they call this kind of existence shadow breaker. This time, Chen was shocked again. The spellbreaker's methods were really endless. Not only did he mess up the rules of the world and destroy the shadow vanquisher race, but now he wanted to create a new race. He could imagine that even if Andrew didn't kill him, as long as he captured him, what followed would be endless research. In fact, it even went from stripping away one's strength to stripping away one's soul and body. Just thinking about it made him feel good. Chen's body fell back and he looked up at the blue sky. It seems that we will be living together from now on. Since the rules were not complete, there was no possibility of a breakthrough, which was why Chen had not broken through yet. Whether it was the heart or the black stone, they could only provide him with energy, but they could not help him repair the laws. Therefore, he could only accept his fate. At this moment, Chen suddenly missed his hometown and his friends. He wondered if they were doing well. Hugh didn't go back on his word, did he? As for him, he was completely unable to return. The world had changed, and the rules had been broken. It was obviously impossible for him to repair it with his current strength of the 5-strength state. Unknowingly, Chen had fallen asleep. The old man looked at the sleeping Chen and waved his hand, indicating that everyone could disperse. The other shadow destroyers scattered in all directions. Some entered the Black Mountain Peak, but some stayed behind. Many of them sat or sprawled in front of Chen, looking at him curiously. Chen slept very soundly. He even had a dream and saw his friends. When he opened his eyes and saw the big and small heads, he was shocked. Then he sat up. His thoughts returned. Chen knew what had happened and sighed softly. Babbling sounds could be heard. These shadow destroyers, who were obviously children, were saying something to him. Chen could not understand and could only smile at them. There was still a warm energy entering his body from the Black Mountain Peak, but it did not change anything. Soon, Chen discovered a problem. Because everyone's bodies were illusory, they did not need to refine energy. They just needed to stay on the Black Mountain Peak. However, Chen could not. His energy would be depleted, even if he stayed in this place. Although he still had a lot of energy, it would be used up one day. It seemed that he could not stay here for long. So, after staying here for a while, Chen decided to leave. If those spellbreakers found their way here, it would be a complete disaster for all the shadow destroyers present. He looked at the Black Mountain Peak. If even this thing was destroyed, then the shadow destroyer clan would disappear completely. When that happened, he would be a sinner. So, he told the old man his intention. The old man said, "No hurry. Wait a while." Chen did not understand. The old man pointed at the Black Mountain Peak and said, "Every once in a while, the Gate of Souls will open. I hope you can go in and take a look." Then the old man told him that the reason he could speak was that he had entered the Gate of Souls and obtained a black dot of light. Since then, he had awakened his memory. But after that, many shadow destroyers went in but found nothing. So he wanted Chen to give it a try. Chen nodded in agreement. He really wanted to go and take a look at such a strange place. Whether it was the old man or Chen, both of them had a kind of anticipation, or rather, anticipation in their hearts. But they did not say it out loud. Since coming here, he had spent most of his time on the Black Mountain Peak. During this time, soul power continuously entered his sea of consciousness. Although it could not help him break through, it could increase his soul power. The benefits were not small. The shadow destroyer called Xiaowei often came to Chen. Through chatting with the old man, he learned that although Xiaowei had not awakened her memory, she had already awakened her intelligence. She sat beside Chen for a long time. Knowing that Chen could not understand her, she did not speak much. When Xiaowei was around, the other shadow destroyers did not come over. In fact, Chen could not tell the other shadow destroyers apart from Xiaowei and the old man. They all seemed to look the same. Chen, the Gate of Souls has opened. Finally, Chen heard the old man's long-awaited voice. He immediately stood up and looked at him. The old man was also very excited. The gate of souls has opened. Come with me. Zichen followed the old man into the cave. The cave was very big. Several people could stand side by side. Soon, Zichen discovered that the other shadow destroyers had also arrived. But no one came forward. They all followed behind him. Only he and the old man walked side by side. As they went deeper, Zichen felt that the soul power around him was getting thicker. Finally, they came to the inner core of the Black Mountain Peak. He saw the Gate of Souls. It was a door suspended in the air. It kept rotating, surging with rich soul power and emitting a bright soul light. Go! The old man's voice was clearly very excited. Zichen turned back and looked behind him. All the shadow destroyers were standing there, looking at him. Chapter 5103. All the shadow destroyers looked at Zichen. At this moment, Zichen seemed to understand their emotions. There was anticipation and hope. As the last shadow destroyer in this world, they all hoped that Zichen would gain something after entering. After all, this was the Mountain of Souls, the last treasure of the Shadow Destroyer clan. It was also because of its existence that they were protected. They hoped that Zichen could bring about a miracle. Go! The old man's voice was also a little emotional. Zichen turned and entered the Gate of Souls. At this moment, all the shadow destroyers made a uniform movement, as if praying for Zichen. After entering the Gate of Souls, Zichen saw nothing. This place was completely empty. There was nothing here. This made him stunned, and he recalled what the old man had said. Other than himself, no one else had discovered anything after coming here. Could it be that he would also gain nothing? At this moment, Zichen saw a ray of light. A straight ray of light flashed past his eyes. Zichen wanted to reach out and grab it, but the light seemed to be in a different space and time. It passed through Zichen's palm. Zichen was unwilling to give up. His figure flashed, trying to catch up with the light. Swoosh! The light flashed and disappeared. Just as Zichen was feeling a little depressed, another light appeared in front of him. This time, 2 streaks of light streaked across Zichen's face. Zichen stared at the 2 rays of light carefully. His entire consciousness seemed to sink into them. Then he seemed to see everything in the world from the 2 rays of light. The 2 rays of light disappeared, and 3 more appeared in his vision. Then one after another, they kept stacking up. Finally, 49 rays of light appeared. After these rays of light, Zichen's eyes were bright. He saw more rays of light of the rules. At this moment, he seemed to see the essence of this world. Countless rays of light intertwined, forming an invisible net. Then the net expanded, outlining a world. These lights were all laws. Just as Zichen was in a daze and did not understand the meaning behind it, he suddenly saw the net dissipate between heaven and earth. Then, more laws appeared. These laws were very special. They intertwined and entangled with each other. From the initial incompleteness, he began to piece it together until it was finally perfect. In the end, all the rules intertwined together to form a ball of light. This ball of light represented the rules. And it was a complete set of rules. It seemed to have come from another time and space, breaking through countless spaces and crossing the barriers of time and space to arrive in front of Zichen. Before Zichen could reach out, the ball of light entered Zichen's body. In the next moment, the sphere of light spread out, forming a complete set of laws within Zichen's body. It was as if a complete small world had unfolded from Zichen's body. This made him realize something. Previously, he had seen the rules of the great world. Now, he was looking at the rules of the small world of the human body. At the moment when the rules were complete, Zichen's heart beat violently. Then, there was a surge of energy that flowed through his heart to all parts of his body. The path that had previously blocked Zichen's advancement seemed to have been patched up after the small world's rules filled in. Once again, it became unobstructed. In front of Zichen's eyes, there was a bright light. He saw countless rules flowing. At the same time, his body was also transforming towards reality. At this point, he had advanced from the 5th to the 6th. Zichen, who was at the 6th force state, truly felt the existence of his physical body. The blood in his body flowed like a river. His heart beat like a drum, thumping. All of this was real. Zichen became very excited. Because the completion of the rules meant that he had the possibility of advancing again, and also the possibility of going home. Although this path might not be smooth, and he would need to cut through thorns and thorns. Moreover, looking at this space, he knew very well what he would face after accepting the complete rules. But that was not important. What was important was that he had broken through. In the future, he was destined to move forward. Countless rules flashed in front of his eyes. Among them, the destruction rule was even clearer and more obvious. This was Zichen's attack technique. After a long time, the surrounding light faded. Zichen's heart returned to its normal beating speed. Although there was still a steady flow of energy, it was no longer as surging as before. Around his body, the light of the sixth force was very obvious. In his sea of consciousness, there was a lot more soul power that could be mobilized. At this moment, he felt very good and powerful. He took a deep breath and carefully sensed his current body and strength. After a while, when Zichen came back to his senses, the front had become pitch black. Behind him, the light door had opened. Zichen looked at the void, bowed, and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your help. From now on, I will advance and retreat together with the Annihilation Shadow Clan, sharing honor and disgrace." After saying that, Zichen turned around and entered the light door. In the pitch-black space, the last bit of light disappeared. The Gate of Souls closed again. Zichen walked out of the Gate of Souls and saw that the Shadow Destroyers were still standing there. Their actions were the same. This seemed to be an ancient prayer meeting. Sacred and solemn. The elder was the first to notice Zichen. He immediately asked, "How is it?" But as soon as he said that, he became extremely nervous and perturbed. Because Zichen carried the hope of their clan. The other Shadow Destroyers all looked up. Although they had not gained intelligence, they understood that this concerned the fate of their clan. Light flowed around Zichen's body. A total of 6 force of light surrounded his body. This was the best response for everyone. As expected, the elder's body trembled, and then he immediately burst into tears. The other Shadow Destroyers also began to cheer. Yes, they were cheering. This time, Zichen could hear their voices and even know their intentions. Looking at these Shadow Destroyers again, he could already distinguish the differences between each person. Because he had become a member of the Shadow Destroyers. The excited elder came back to his senses and immediately kowtowed to the front. The other Shadow Destroyers followed suit. Zichen had broken the rules and broken through again. This meant that he had taken a big step forward. And this big step was of great significance to the Shadow Destroyer clan. At this moment, even in this cave, they could already feel a steady flow of soul power entering their bodies. This time, it was not simply maintaining life. It seemed to have begun to stay in their bodies. When Zichen was escorted out of the cave by the crowd, he found that the original Black Mountain peak was only half its original size. A full half of it had disappeared into thin air. Zichen knew that this was the price that the Soul Mountain had to pay for helping him fix the rules. This meant that he had received his reward. Next, it was time to complete his responsibility and mission. Chapter 5104. Zichen did not leave immediately. This was the elder's idea. He told Zichen that he could stay here. If he could improve his realm again, it would be great. And this Soul Mountain was the most precious treasure of the Shadow Destroyer clan. It was the same for Zichen. Zichen stayed here for 3 days and decided to leave. This was because the Soul Mountain's energy was rapidly depleting. A portion of it was absorbed by him. If this went on, he might really break through. A small portion was absorbed by the other Shadow Destroyers. If he continued to stay here, the Soul Mountain would definitely be absorbed by him. Without the help of the Soul Mountain, what would happen to these Shadow Destroyers? Zichen did not dare to imagine. The elder also sensed this situation, so he did not urge Zichen to stay. When they left, Xiaowei led the way again. She led Zichen out of here, then turned here and there and walked a long way before reaching the mountain range. After that, Zichen waved goodbye to Xiaowei. The girl, who was just a shadow, stood high up and kept waving, until Zichen's figure completely disappeared. Returning to the forest again, Zichen turned his head and glanced into the depths. His breakthrough this time was really due to luck. If he had not kept going deeper, if he had not met Xiaowei, he would have been in deep trouble. But it was also true that there was always a way out, and the world had its own destiny. A law-breaking beast was hiding in the dark, slowly approaching Zichen. Its eyes were extremely cold. It moved silently until it was behind Zichen. Zichen seemed to be a little distracted and did not notice the abnormality behind him. The next moment, the law-breaking beast pounced. As the two sides approached, its eyes were full of brutality, as if it saw its prey being devoured. At this moment, a ray of light suddenly appeared. Like lightning, it quickly cut through the sky. Poof! Poof! There was only one ray of light, but two sounds came out one after the other because it was too fast. The first time, it pierced the law-breaking beast's heart. After drawing an arc in the air, the second time, it turned back and pierced its head. The huge body of the law-breaking beast crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The white mark left behind by the spirit of massacre lingered in the air for a long time. Zichen turned around. This time, he didn't see the inner core, but he also put away the corpse. He was about to leave, and if there were no accidents, he probably wouldn't return. Therefore, before he left, Zichen wanted to collect more law-breaker beast corpses to exchange for cultivation resources. Originally, he had wanted to leave the remaining resources on him for the shadow destroyers, but he realized that they could not absorb any other energy other than the energy from the Soul Mountain. Buzz! The slaughter spirit turned into a stream of light and quickly pierced through the law-breaking beast's body. By the time Zichen arrived, the law-breaking beast was already dead. He directly collected the corpses and did not need to deal with them. Then came the next one. Compared to when he had been at the 5 Force, the 6 Force Zichen had truly become a powerful shadow destroyer. At the same time, he had also gained the most important ability, soul power perception. Just like the divine consciousness in the outside world, he could sense the movement of the grass within a radius of 300 feet. Although it couldn't be compared to when he was in the Saint Spirit realm, it was already very good for Zichen. After making some small gains, Zichen turned back and returned. No matter what, he still had to exchange for energy. This was the foundation of cultivation. Kant once said that when he reached the 6 Force, the amount of resources he needed would increase by another level. After returning, Zichen walked back to the law-breaking city. Along the way, many people saw him, but their expressions didn't change much. There were people going in and out of this place every day. However, soon, some people realized that this person looked very familiar, but they couldn't remember where they had seen him before. It was normal for one person to have such doubts, but now, many people had the same feeling, which was not normal. Zichen was indifferent to everyone's strange looks. Zichen. Suddenly, someone exclaimed as he recognized Zichen. This shout was like a stone that fell into a lake, causing thousands of ripples. In an instant, there were cries of surprise everywhere. Zichen, the person who became a shadow destroyer a year ago, caused a huge commotion at that time. However, not long after, he disappeared without a trace. During this time, there were many rumors about Zichen. Some said that he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and offended a 7 Force realm cultivator, which resulted in him being killed. Some said that he was summoned by a big shot, entered the depths, and didn't come out. However, the most credible one was that he died in the forest. Because he was too arrogant and had been alone, he was killed by the law-breaking beast. Because he hadn't broken through yet, his corpse was not found. Because of this rumor, many people went to the forest, wanting to find the treasures left behind by Zichen after his death. In short, there were many rumors, but there was no news about Zichen. At first, he would be a topic of conversation, but slowly, he was forgotten. Until now, when he suddenly appeared, no one remembered him. Now that they saw Zichen again, they were very shocked. At the moment, Zichen didn't have the light of power flowing around him, which made people wonder if he had advanced to the 6 Force realm. A lawbreaker at the 6 Force realm was definitely a big shot in this place. Therefore, As Zi Chen passed by, he attracted a lot of attention. Zi Chen went directly to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. After entering, everyone looked at him. Obviously, they had heard the news. Zi Chen didn't stay on the first floor and went directly to the second floor. Without needing to be verified, he went up directly. There was an uproar below. Some people were exclaiming the six-force realm. A very young woman stood at the stairs to welcome Zi Chen. After seeing him come up, she smiled and asked Zi Chen what he needed. This woman was at the four-force realm. "I want to exchange for resources," Zi Chen said simply. "What resources do you want to exchange? What are you going to exchange for?" The woman had a professional smile on her face. There weren't many people here. Everyone was provided one-on-one service. Zi Chen took out the corpse of the lawbreaker beast. The woman's smile immediately disappeared and she retreated. Because Zi Chen took out too many corpses, they quickly piled up at the door. Such a scene also caused the hearts of the other people on this floor to be filled with shock. The people who didn't care at first were now looking at Zi Chen. To be able to take out so many corpses of lawbreaker beasts, he was definitely not an ordinary person. His Zi Chen, the shadow destroyer who disappeared. Isn't he dead? Immediately, this level began to tremble. Zi Chen did not care about the commotion. He walked straight ahead because time was limited. Compared to the first floor, the things here were much more comprehensive. From resources to weapons, it could be said that there was everything. There were even inner elixirs. Of course, the thing that people here exchanged the most was true spiritual power. This was the cultivation resource of the six-force realm. A complete corpse could be exchanged for about 100 true spiritual power. Of course, if it was dissected and then sold, it could be exchanged for more. However, this was a test of the dissection technique. A bad cut could result in a discount. The woman at the four-force realm recovered from her shock. She immediately walked up to Zi Chen and asked, "What do you want to exchange for?" Her attitude was even more respectful. "True spiritual power. All of it," Zi Chen said decisively. "How much can I get back?" "You have 10 corpses of lawbreaker beasts here. The total is 1 in total." Chapter 5105. Zi Chen took out a total of 10 corpses of law-breaking beasts. Under normal circumstances, they could be exchanged for 1,000 daos of power. Yet, at that moment, there was actually someone who shouted out those words. Furthermore, the reason for that was because of benevolence. After returning, Zi Chen didn't think that everything would go smoothly. He didn't expect trouble to come as soon as he arrived. Moreover, this place was known as the fairest place. The expression of the woman who spoke earlier changed. Then, she retreated with an apologetic look. Zi Chen turned around and saw a man walking towards him. He glanced at the corpses on the ground. Then, he pointed a finger at Zi Chen and said, 1 daos. These can only be exchanged for 1 daos of energy. Of course, it's because I'm kind. Otherwise, you won't even get one. The others kept quiet out of fear. They stood in the distance, including the guests in the Six Forces state. This man had a high status. He was the manager of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Everyone here had to listen to him. This manager might not have a high cultivation level, but his status was high. However, the crowd didn't understand why this manager was targeting Zi Chen. It was obvious that he was targeting him. "What did you say?" Zi Chen looked at him. "I said, at most, I'll give you 1 daos of energy." The man sneered. "And this is because I'm kind. Is this how the Hall of Spiritual Spells does business?" Zi Chen frowned. This was known as the fairest place. "This is my place. I can do business however I want. It's none of your business." The man sneered and said, "If you think it's unfair, then get lost." Zi Chen suppressed the anger in his heart and was about to leave with the corpses of law-breaking beasts. "Leave the things and get lost." The man glanced at Zi Chen indifferently. Zi Chen's eyes were cold. "Are you going to rob me? So what if we snatch it?" The man said coldly, "Do you dare to make a move? Do you have the guts? If you break the rules, I'll let your corpse be exposed in the wilderness. In this Pofa city, Rules must be obeyed. The man waved his hand at Zi Chen with a look of disgust. Get lost. If you dare to come here again, I'll break your legs. Zi Chen laughed when he heard that. If you want to die, just say it. I'm a very easygoing person. I'll definitely fulfill your wish. As Zi Chen spoke, he pressed down on the man's head. The other party didn't resist and said angrily, You dare to break the rules of Pofa City? The rules here don't even apply to spellbreakers, let alone a shadow destroyer. At that moment, a voice came from the staircase. Furthermore, it's the Hall of Spiritual Spells. You're trying to do evil to a shadow destroyer. You're simply courting death. Kant came up from downstairs. After hearing the news of Zi Chen's appearance, he immediately came over. Back then, the 2 martial crystal sources that Zi Chen had given him, in addition to some other resources, had allowed Kant to successfully break through and advance to the 6 forces stage. Although Zi Chen had been forgotten by this world, he had never forgotten. He also firmly believed that Zi Chen was still alive. This was because he had seen Zi Chen fight with his own eyes. If the strong cultivators in the depths didn't come out, it was almost impossible for the spell-breaker beasts in the forest to kill him. As expected, Zi Chen had returned. Since he could come here, it was obvious that he had broken through. Zi Chen glanced at Kant. Is it okay to kill people here? Kant said, they were in the wrong first. Zi Chen nodded. He understood what Kant meant. What? You still want to fight? Unexpectedly, the manager wasn't afraid at all, even if a spellbreaker came. After breaking free from Zi Chen's grasp, he waved his hand and a few strangers appeared on the 2nd floor. Their gazes were cold. They stood in different places and vaguely surrounded Zi Chen. Seeing this, the others dispersed again. It was obvious that a battle was about to happen. Among these people, there were 5 forces realm and 6 forces realm. One of them was a man with a sword in his hands. He leaned against a pillar and looked a little lazy. In another direction, a half-naked man with a heavy hammer on his shoulder was looking at Zi Chen from the corner of his eyes. These 2 were not only 6 forces realm but also the best of the best. In addition, there was a 6 forces realm cultivator in each of the other 4 directions. Seeing this, Kant's face turned cold. The Hall of Spiritual Spells has guts. How dare you break the rules? The middle-aged man waved his hand and said, This has nothing to do with you. If you don't want to die, hurry up and get down. Don't die here unjustly. Although he was very arrogant in front of Zi Chen, he still didn't dare to mess around with Kant, a spellbreaker. Are you stupid? He's a shadow destroyer. How dare you attack a shadow destroyer? Kant said angrily. He couldn't understand what these people were thinking. The steward smiled coldly. Shadow destroyer. How impressive. I just don't know if his head will be separated from his body by my sword. The man with the sword smiled faintly. He looked at Zi Chen and clenched the sword in his hand. My heavy hammer is also thirsty. I wonder if the blood of a shadow destroyer tastes good. The brawny man waved his heavy hammer and smiled evilly. Zi Chen smiled. You can still smile like this. Looks like you. As soon as the man with the sword finished speaking, a ray of light flew towards him. Poof! His body leaning against the pillar involuntarily left the pillar and fell to the side. The long sword in his hand directly hit the ground. Then his body fell heavily, making a thud. No one had thought that Zi Chen would make a move, and it was so swift. The brawny man had just raised his heavy hammer when the ray of light pierced his forehead. His body fell forward due to inertia. The heavy hammer in his hand swung forward, making a huge noise. 2 of the steward's strongest subordinates had died in a single exchange. Buzz! The ray of light was trembling, and the massacre spirit flew away quickly. Poof! 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 Following that, the hostile existences fell one after another. Those in the 6-force realm still had intact corpses. As for those in the 5-force realm, they directly dissipated. At this level, the power of the massacre spirit had become stronger. Kant stood there. He was originally full of anger, but now there was only shock in his eyes. Not far away, the steward's eyes were wide open. Such killing power was simply too terrifying. However, he was clearly not afraid. He pointed at Chen and reprimanded, "How dare you? How dare you, Buzz?" The slaughter spirit arrived and pierced through the enemy's head. It then drew an arc in the air and returned to Chen's side before disappearing. There was no more hostility around. That was because those who were hostile were all dead. The people in the distance all stood there, not even daring to breathe. In an instant, many people in the Sixth Force realm were killed. That was too terrifying. Chen glanced around, then walked straight to the counter. In front of everyone, he directly took away the 1,000 dows of true magic. That was what he had originally exchanged. Then, Chen took away 9 more corpses of the law-breaking beasts, leaving one behind. He looked at the woman in the Four-Force realm who was trembling in fear and said, "This is your reward for leading the way." After that, he went straight downstairs. Chapter 5106. If I can't write it, tomorrow will be even worse. Thunder Marshal has not been updated today. It is currently in your hands. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5107. The reason why Chen took away the corpse of the Lawbreaker beast was because the Hall of Spiritual Spells had broken the rules. He deserved to have the loot. When he went downstairs, the others backed away. Although they did not see it with their own eyes, they knew what had happened. Chen left the Hall of Spiritual Spells directly. Kant followed him out. As a lawbreaker in the Six Forces state, no one dared to stop him. He was also the only one who had broken through. "Where are you going?" Kant asked after he followed him out. "Outside the city." Chen turned around and threw out an item. It was a ring containing all his loot. "Help me exchange it." Kant caught the ring and asked, "Where can I find you?" "Where there is a battle." Chen left with large strides, heading straight out of the city. There would definitely be a battle, or more battles. The news of Chen appearing in the city and killing someone in the Hall of Spiritual Spells spread quickly. Chen, who had disappeared for a long time, appeared in front of everyone again. And this time, he had broken through. This made many people who knew the inside story feel that it was unbelievable. The Shadow Destroyer was already a dead end. How could Chen break through? Chen walked out of the city and jumped onto a big rock. He lay there and waited quietly for new trouble to come. He did not expect to run into trouble in the Hall of Spiritual Spells, so he killed the person directly. As for what would happen next, he wanted to see. When Spicer and the others heard the news, they immediately walked out of the city together. When they arrived, many people had already gathered. Chen was lying on a big rock leisurely. The others stood far away, not daring to get close. "It's really him." When Phoebe saw Chen, he was shocked. It's been so long. How could he still be alive? Not only is he alive, but he also broke through. Spicer frowned. He had seen Chen escape into the forest with his own eyes, and Andrew had been suppressed in the battle with Chen. On the way back, Andrew clearly told him that it was impossible for Chen to break through because it involved the rules. But now, Chen had actually broken through. A group of 6 people walked out of the city and soared into the sky, heading straight in this direction. They were from the Hall of Spiritual Spells. As a force, the Hall of Spiritual Spells was rich and had recruited many experts. Chen had killed their people, which was a violation of the rules. They had come to collect their debts. A total of 6 people landed on the ground and surrounded Chen. Chen sat up, glanced at the 6 of them and said, "You don't even have a 7th strength state cultivator. Are you looking down on me?" He yawned. Then, his figure disappeared. Like a ghost, he appeared in front of a 6 realms cultivator. The 6 realms cultivator who came here knew how powerful Chen was, so he had been on guard. Just as Chen appeared in front of him, the cultivator shouted, and a dazzling light bloomed in front of him. The 6 realms cultivator's power contained the rules of attack. This was his rule, which was attached to the blade, and he slashed at Chen's head. This slash was full of power and momentum. Chen stretched out his hand and easily blocked the blade. He allowed the energy to wreak havoc, but it was unable to move forward. In the next moment, light flowed in Chen's palm. This was a crisscrossing attack, which directly swept past the Six Realms cultivator's body. The light of energy on the cultivator's body immediately dimmed and extinguished, and then his body scattered. When the people in the distance saw this, their faces changed drastically. This was too terrifying, wasn't it? Without looking at the broken body on the ground, Zichen's figure flashed again, and he appeared in front of the second Six Realms cultivator. One punch. He was sent flying. Puff. While the cultivator's body was still in midair, the slaughter spirit pierced through his head. He fell to the ground and died. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 6 had died. Go to hell. A cultivator rushed forward quickly, the sword in his hand flowing with a fierce aura. He came from behind and stabbed at Zichen's back. A ray of light flashed, and the bone stick blocked the attack behind him. When it came into contact with the sword, it shook off the weapon. The Six Realms cultivator who was holding the weapon changed his expression. The light of energy around him surged wildly, and he rushed forward again. He wanted to get close to Zichen in one go. At this moment, a punch landed on his chest. Buzz. The rule appeared again, and like the sharpest weapon in the world, it swept past his body. This was a scene that no one could look at directly. Run. In the blink of an eye, 3 of them were dead. When the other 3 saw this, they all wanted to retreat, and they turned around and ran. Sure enough, it was too difficult to kill Zichen without being in the 7 realms. You want to run? Zichen glanced at the 3 of them. They were very smart, and they all ran in different directions. It was obvious that they wanted to pray for their own good. Zichen chased after them. When he used all his energy, he was much faster than them. A scream came from afar. Everyone knew that this was the 4th person to die. Then, 2 more screams came one after another. None of the 6 cultivators managed to escape alive. Zichen collected their belongings and casually threw their corpses to the side. Compared to the lawbreakers, it seemed that the lawbreakers were more willing to die. For example, they were afraid of the lawbreakers, but they were not afraid of him. Was it because there were more lawbreakers? He walked back, took the weapons and rings of the dead Six Realms cultivators, and waved his hand. In the next moment, a ray of light swept across, and the mutilated corpses flew into the distance. He wanted to continue staying here, and those corpses were no doubt an eyesore. When Kant finished exchanging his items and came back, the battle had already ended. He looked at Zichen, who was lying there. After hesitating, he still walked forward, ignoring the warnings of his companions. If he approached Zichen in this situation, it would be obvious that he was related to him. When trouble came, he might be implicated. Kant returned the ring to Zichen, and exchanged all the items inside for resources. Zichen took it and thanked him profusely. What are you going to do next? Kant asked. I'll kill that guy last time, and then we'll see. This was what Zichen thought of when he was in trouble with the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Kant's expression changed, and he said, Are you sure? Last time, Andrew suppressed Zichen completely. All of Zichen's attacks were ineffective against him. Although he had broken through this time, and his combat power had increased, Kant knew that the difference between them was not just a simple realm. It shouldn't be a big problem. In Zichen's body, the rules had been completely replenished. It should be impossible for the other party to suppress him. However, Zichen still wanted to try what would happen if they fought. He glanced in Spicer's direction, believing that they should have already sent the news. Next, he just had to wait. In the process of waiting, no one from the Hall of Spiritual Spells came to cause trouble. The crowd did not disperse. Everyone stayed in the distance, waiting to watch a good show. Chapter 5108. Andrew was led by a few spellbreakers to the outskirts of the city. As he descended, he saw Zichen standing up from the boulder. At this moment, Zichen was looking at him indifferently. A strange look appeared on Andrew's face. You're still alive. That's not all. Zichen said coldly. The energy around him began to surge. There was a total of 6 forces. 6 forces state. Not only are you alive, but you've also broken through. When Andrew saw this, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said, saying that you stepped on dogshit and walked into dogshit luck is an insult to you. You're a miracle. How did you break through? Why don't you guess? Chen jumped down from the boulder and approached Andrew. Why? Do you think you can beat me now that you've broken through? Have you forgotten how you ran away with your tail between your legs last time? Andrew smiled disdainfully at the provocation in Chen's eyes. Not many people knew about this. Many people asked curiously after hearing Andrew's words. Unfortunately, no one knew the answer. Let's try again today. Chen took the initiative to charge forward. The moment he got close to Andrew, he threw out a punch. It went straight for Andrew's face. Andrew stood there with a disdainful look on his face. Faced with this punch, he did not dodge. The punch hit his forehead, but the energy on it disappeared quickly. It did not hurt or itch. Kant's expression changed when he saw this. The scene from last time was happening again. Chen's next punch came and went straight for Andrew's temple. The punch landed squarely on Andrew, but it did not cause any substantial damage. There was an uproar in the distance. Everyone did not understand why. Andrew's foot landed. Chen blocked it with his hand and slid back. Andrew looked at Chen. Come back with me now. I won't kill you. Chen smiled faintly and said, You? Next, he attacked again and again. He used all kinds of powerful attacks, but he could not hurt Andrew at all. Just as his attacks were about to hit Andrew, they were dissolved by an invisible force. No one knew why this happened. However, everyone's eyes were burning with passion. If they could master such a move, wouldn't they be invincible? Kant wouldn't forget what happened last time, so he was filled with worry. Last time, Chen had escaped. Would he be able to escape this time? He had already noticed that the people who had followed Andrew had quietly scattered in all directions. What's going on? Phoebe and the others were also shocked as they looked at Spicer, who was at the Six Forces state. Spicer shook his head and said, It could be a deep secret. This is too amazing. If everyone had this kind of skill, then everyone would be able to crush Chen and grind him to the ground. Phoebe's eyes were filled with envy. They had suffered a great loss in front of Chen. Every time, they were crushed and humiliated. Seeing Chen retreat again, Andrew said, My patience is limited. I'll give you one last chance. Come back with me, or you'll die. This time, I won't give you a chance to escape. Chen stretched his muscles and said indifferently, I can't deny that you guys do have some ability. You can almost completely restrain my energy, regardless of your cultivation level. It was the same for the Five Forces state and the Six Forces state. Andrew laughed mockingly. Not only did he restrain Chen, but he also restrained all the Shadow Destroyers. The powerful Shadow Destroyers were just a joke in front of him. Then, Chen changed the topic. But that's the end of it. Andrew seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world and couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Chen and said disdainfully, You want to change this situation? It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'll just stand here and not move. You can't do anything to me even if you tire yourself to death. Chen also laughed and didn't argue. He released his aura, fully at the Six Forces state. The energy in his body vibrated, and so did the soul power in his sea of consciousness. At this moment, Chen gave off an inexplicable feeling. It was as if he was a different person from before. Chen's eyes sharpened. At this moment, the complete rules in his body were displayed. He approached Andrew again, this time even faster. The moment he got close, he punched out horizontally and smashed into Andrew's temple. Bam! Andrew's disdainful smile froze, and his body flew backward. In the distance, there was an uproar again. How could this be? Andrew landed on the ground. Chen's figure flashed again, and he appeared in front of the other party, kicking out. Bam! Andrew was sent flying. When he landed, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. How could this be? Weren't you unable to defeat him earlier? Phoebe exclaimed again. Spicer shook his head, clearly unsure of what was going on. Even Andrew himself didn't know why this happened, let alone Spicer. He stood up and pointed at Chen, his eyes full of disbelief. Let's go again. Chen rushed forward and attacked. His huge fist smashed down, smashing into Andrew's face and sending him flying again. Without the suppression of the special rules, Andrew was just a 6-forces realm cultivator. When Chen was in the 5-forces realm, he could already kill such an existence. Right now, it was not difficult to beat the other party with his fists. "You're courting death." Andrew flipped over and got up. He was furious, and a brilliance appeared in front of him. This brilliance was dazzling and powerful, causing many people to palpitate. However, Chen did not care. He still punched forward. In an instant, the brilliance shattered, and he punched his opponent's chest. He coughed out blood again and flew backward. Andrew's aura also weakened. "I don't believe it." Andrew was shocked and angry. He once again mobilized the rules that could suppress the Shadow Destroyers and attacked Chen. This time, Chen looked at him and said, "I'll start with you." He stretched out his palm, and there was a light in it. He slapped out. Wang. Countless vertical and horizontal rays of light formed what seemed to be the sharpest net in the world and swept past Andrew's attack. His attack was directly disintegrated. The light continued forward and swept past Andrew's body. First, a strange light appeared in his body, trying to block the attack of the net. But in the next moment, the light was crushed, and the light net swept past his body. Many silk threads appeared on Andrew's body. He stood there, looking at Chen in a daze, unable to say a word. "Are you confused?" Chen smiled faintly, walked to his side, and whispered in his ear, "Repair the small world, then repair the great world." There was a look of horror in Andrew's eyes. Unfortunately, he could not transmit such an important message. His body was disintegrated just like that. After landing, it was torn to pieces. Chen looked up at the sky. His body was a small world, and now it had been completely repaired by the Soul Mountain. Next, he, the only Shadow Destroyer, would repair the Great World's rules. Chapter 5109. Andrew was dead, and Chen had taken his ring. However, he did not find any valuable clues inside. In terms of resources, he could not even match up to Chen's. The sky darkened, and everyone returned one after another. It was not safe to be outside the city at night. They would never forget what had happened today. Chen also returned to the city. At the very least, he would not be in danger tonight. He returned to his previous residence. He had originally planned to visit Marcus, but he did not expect that Marcus had already moved away. When he returned to his residence, it was already covered in dust. Chen waved his hand, and a stream of air swept past. The room instantly became spotless. Chen sat there and began to think about his future. Actually, returning this time was risky. However, if he wanted to continue growing, he could not leave the resources here. This was a risk that he had to take. It was not just a risk. Chen had taken the resources but did not return to the forest. This was a huge gamble. He wanted to gamble. He was also gambling. He even had to gamble. Everything would depend on tomorrow. The news of Andrew's death quickly spread to the ears of some observant people. Eden, who was at the 7th strength state, was actually Chen's immediate superior. After hearing the news of Andrew's death in battle, he was very surprised. At his level, he already knew some secrets. This was also the reason why he was so calm when he went to recruit Chen last time. He did not feel sorry for Chen's rejection. Spellbreaker Bosch had also tried to recruit Chen. When he heard that Andrew had been killed, his expression changed. Even if Eden knew some secrets, it was limited. He did not know as much as Bosch. If it was said that Chen's ability to break through to the 6th force grade was a miracle, then killing Andrew was another miracle. On a larger scale, this was turning the sky upside down. However, the matter concerned the Shadow Destroyer. The two of them did not dare to casually deal with it. They could only wait for orders from above. Therefore, the two of them tacitly sent people to keep an eye on Chen and did not do anything else. That night, the news spread to the depths of the city, causing quite a commotion. Immediately, some bad-tempered spellbreakers said that they wanted to kill Chen. What kind of joke was this? The spellbreakers had suppressed the Shadow Destroyers for countless years. How could they let them overturn the situation? Clearly, there were still some people who remained rational among the furious crowd, and there were some disputes. This argument lasted for the entire night. The next day, Zichen walked out of his room at daybreak. Then, he realized that many people had woken up earlier than him. Perhaps they hadn't slept at all. Gradually, more and more people gathered at the periphery. Of course, a large portion of them were there purely to watch the show. Zichen, on the other hand, was waiting for trouble to come again. The waiting time was not long, only about 2 hours. 3 6 Powers realm cultivators appeared. They were all spell breakers. One of them held a saber while the other 2 held swords. The one with the saber looked at Zichen and coldly asked, "Are you Zichen?" "It's me." Zichen nodded. "Die." The man shouted and slashed down with the saber in his hand. A real saber light flew toward Zichen with him as the starting point. A gully appeared on the ground. All rules and restrictions were useless in front of a lawbreaker. Zichen dodged. At the same time, a stream of light flew out. It was the massacre spirit. Puff! Just as Zichen dodged the blade, the ray of light pierced through the man's temple, completely penetrating his body. The man's body swayed. The power flowing around him showed signs of exhaustion. The other 2 with swords saw this and their expressions changed drastically. They were about to go forward and help. Puff! The next moment, the massacre spirit pierced through the man's heart from the back. Zichen did not test the waters like yesterday. He directly used his full strength. After the rules of the small world in his body were displayed, his combat strength greatly increased. At this moment, Zichen was the Shadow Destroyer. The nearby existences who had come to join in on the fun all felt a strong pressure that made them feel extremely uncomfortable. It was similar to the suppression of bloodline. Like the king of exotic beasts, it had a natural suppression effect. And this world originally belonged to the Shadow Destroyer. Now that Zichen, the only Shadow Destroyer, had appeared, everyone felt the pressure. The man with the saber widened his eyes as if he could not believe all this. Then, his body swayed and he fell to the ground, dead. Swoosh! Zichen's body flashed and rushed toward the 2 swords. Seeing this, the 2 of them immediately charged forward. They began to work together. Sharp sword chi tore through the air, carrying the attack of the rules as they attacked Zichen. In Zichen's hand, the bone staff smashed down and blocked the 2 swords. Hum! The massacre spirit flew forward like a stream of light and attacked one of them. Seeing this, the other party screamed and retreated, avoiding the attack of the massacre spirit. Bang! However, at this moment, Zichen smashed down again and directly pushed the 6 Forces realm next to him back. Then, his body slowed down and he approached the other party. His palm moved forward. Light intertwined between his palms, and this rule-breaker was completed. The 6 Forces realm retreated in fear. After taking a few steps back, his body scattered with a crash. Seeing this, the last person immediately retreated. Previously, they could not win even when working together. Now that he was alone, he would definitely die. "You want to leave?" A cold light flashed in Zichen's eyes as he rushed forward quickly. During this time, the massacre spirit was the first to attack, turning into a stream of light. At this moment, a person suddenly appeared and blocked in front of the 6 Forces realm. He grabbed the massacre spirit in his hand. Zichen followed and slapped down with his palm. Light intertwined between his palms. The person also slapped down with his palm. Light flickered. Kai. Kai. The 2 attacks met and kept cancelling each other out. Zichen immediately retreated and looked forward warily. A person stood in front of him, surrounded by the light of 7 powers. The 7 Forces realm. The other party looked at Zichen and said, "That's enough." The next moment, he let go of his hand and the massacre spirit flew back. The 6 Forces realm was terrified. When he turned around and saw the 7 Forces realm, he said in surprise, "Sir." The 7 Forces realm waved his hand, indicating that he should not speak. After blocking Zichen's palm, the 7 Forces realm's robe had become extremely tattered. Although he was not injured, he looked very embarrassed. He looked at Zichen, and Zichen looked back at him. The others around them did not even dare to breathe loudly. A 7 Forces realm was enough to make people respect him. Moreover, based on Zi Chen's terrifying combat strength, only a Seven Forces realm could suppress him. The Seven Forces realm looked at Zi Chen, but did not say anything. He turned around and left. Zi Chen noticed that there was blood dripping from the fingertip of the Seven Forces realm that had just caught the massacre spirit. Obviously, even a Seven Forces realm could not ignore the attack of a real Shadow Destroyer. Zi Chen let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that he had made the right bet. After collecting the spoils, he returned to his room. After today's battle, he believed that there would be fewer troubles in the future. "Boy, you're very confident." As soon as he returned to his room, an indifferent voice sounded from Zi Chen's room. Chapter 51:10. Someone had arrived in Zi Chen's room ahead of time, and he, a Shadow Destroyer, had not noticed at all. That person just sat there, smiling at Zi Chen. There were no energy fluctuations on his body, but Zi Chen felt a strong sense of danger. Zi Chen had fought with 7 Powers Realm Spellbreakers before. But this person had not shown any power, yet he could make him feel threatened. He must be extraordinary. Zi Chen looked at him, but his expression did not change much. "Then why don't you guess where I come from?" The person glanced at Zi Chen and said lightly. Zi Chen said, "The Hall of Spiritual Spells." A strange light flashed in the person's eyes. He seemed very surprised. "Why?" Zi Chen said, "The Hall of Spiritual Spells is a place for business. The most important thing is fairness. But I did not see it that day. It's that simple." "No, not only did I not see fairness, I saw aggressiveness." Zi Chen said, "I don't think it should be like this, especially when it comes to business. Because no matter where it is, business is all about harmony." The person nodded. "That's right. The Hall of Spiritual Spells does not lie, but in terms of honesty, we absolutely cannot lie. So you have already guessed that I did not come to you for the 10 shares of true Dharma power." At that time, Zi Chen not only took away the corpse and terminated the transaction, but also took away an additional 1,000 true Dharma power. The reason for this was because the Hall of Spiritual Spells did not follow the rules in the first place. The person said again, "My name is Peng Ran. Why don't you guess again why I came here?" Zi Chen shook his head. "I can't guess." Peng Ran laughed. "You guessed it long ago. Is it because you care about my face?" "Very good, at least that's what I think." Zi Chen's emotions had completely calmed down. Peng Ran withdrew his smile and said, "I came this time not only to see the only Shadow Destroyer who broke the rules, but also to tell you a piece of news. The forces in the depths will no longer target you. But don't be happy too early. This doesn't mean that you can rest easy. There are still some radicals who won't let this go. But even if they target you, there will be a limit. So as long as you don't die within this limit, it's fine." Zi Chen nodded, indicating that he understood. "Aren't you going to ask why?" Peng Ran looked at the calm Zi Chen and asked curiously. "Maybe it has something to do with the mysterious rules." Zi Chen said, "You really are a smart person. One good thing about dealing with smart people is that you don't have to beat around the bush." Peng Ran took out an item and threw it to Zi Chen. Zi Chen subconsciously took it. "I'll leave the Hall of Spiritual Spells here to you. Manage it well. When you have the ability, go and take a look at the depths." Peng Ran said, "Of course, I believe that the 6 Forces state is definitely not your final destination." With that, Peng Ran disappeared. Zi Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. This time, he had made the right bet. Back then, those Dharma breakers had taken over the nest and broken the rules of this world. And when the world was not complete, there were also problems in this world. Perhaps this problem had something to do with the passage that had not appeared in the depths. So now that another Shadow Destroyer had appeared, they did not mind taking a look or waiting to see if he could bring some changes to this world. Just as Peng Ran said at the end, as long as he could continue to break through, there would be no problems. Zi Chen looked at this residence. He probably would not be staying here in the future. Holding the token Peng Ran gave him, Zi Chen went straight to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. When he reached the first floor, everyone's expression changed when they saw Zi Chen. They had all heard about what had happened yesterday. This lord's strength was simply beyond their imagination. Zi Chen went to the second floor again. During this time, no one dared to stop him. He looked around and did not see the woman who had led him here that day. The others did not dare to approach Zi Chen. There was fear in their eyes. They were afraid that he was here for revenge. Zi Chen took out the token and said, "Where should I go next?" When everyone saw the token, their eyes widened and they hurriedly bowed to Zi Chen. This was the token of the highest steward. Just yesterday, Zi Chen had killed that steward. "Sir, please follow me." Immediately, a woman walked over. After seeing the token, she was not afraid anymore. With this item, he was definitely not here for revenge. How many stewards are there here? The woman led Zi Chen away from this level and headed straight for the upper level. "Sir, there is a deputy steward, a 5-strength realm cultivator, and 2 floor lords." The woman explained to Zi Chen. The third floor was not small. About half of it was occupied. The servant led Zi Chen to a room. "My lord, it's inside." But before she could push the door open, she heard a voice coming from inside the door. "Bitch, I've already said a lot of good things. Don't be ungrateful. Let me tell you, the steward is dead. Next, I'll be promoted to steward. Hurry up and hand over the corpse of the lawbreaker beast. Otherwise, I'll find an excuse to kill you. That'll be the end of everything." Zi Chen waved his hand, stopping the woman from speaking. He frowned. "Now that's a good girl. Next, you'll serve me and do whatever I tell you to do. Now, take off your clothes." "Sir, I have to go back to work." A woman's voice rang out. It was the same woman from yesterday. "If I tell you to stay, then stay." The man said angrily. "Bitch, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Then a woman's shriek rang out. Zi Chen pushed open the door. "Fuck, who let you in?" The man cursed, but when he looked up and saw who it was, he couldn't finish his sentence. At this moment, the beautiful woman was already pressed on the table, exposed to the view of the spring scenery. "What are you doing here? Who let you in? Do you know what this place is?" The man pretended to be calm and shouted, "Why haven't you left yet?" Thankfully, he knew shame, and let go of the woman. When the woman saw Zi Chen, she lowered her head in shame and began to cry. Zi Chen produced a command medallion and waved it at the man. When the man saw the command medallion, his face fell. He looked to the side and saw the woman who had brought Zi Chen in. He nodded quietly. The man's face immediately turned pale. "Sir, please let me explain." Zi Chen didn't look at the assistant steward. Instead, he looked at the sobbing woman. "What's your name?" The woman looked up and said quietly, "Sir, my name is Miria." Zi Chen nodded and said, "The name is not bad. You lost your payment." Miria looked at the corpse of the lawbreaker beast on the ground, but didn't dare to collect it. "What are you waiting for? You dropped your stuff. How could you be so careless? You've dirtied Sir's floor. Can you bear the consequences?" The assistant steward shouted. Miria was so frightened that she trembled. She quickly collected the corpse. Zi Chen said, "If anyone asks, just say that I said that there's no need for an assistant steward." The assistant steward's face was filled with shock. "What do you mean? You want to fire me? Let me tell you, Before he could finish, Zi Chen flicked his finger. Chapter 51:11. Fire. Am I that kind of person? Before his body disappeared, the assistant manager heard Zi Chen's calm words. He was only in the 5-strength state. Otherwise, he wouldn't have coveted Miria's law-breaking beast's corpse. Because this was related to whether or not he could advance to the 6-strength state. But he didn't expect that Zi Chen would come. Moreover, he came as a manager. What was even more unexpected was that Zi Chen had the guts to kill someone in front of him. Wasn't he afraid that Sir would blame him? After all, he was appointed by the higher-ups. Miria and the woman stood there, not daring to move. Obviously, they were scared stiff. Zi Chen waved his hand, indicating that the two could leave. When Miria returned to the second floor, the other people looked at her strangely. They naturally knew that Miria had been called up by the assistant manager. As for what would happen, everyone could guess. However, after the woman explained what had happened, their expressions changed again. The assistant manager was dead. Wasn't this newcomer, Lord Zi Chen, a little too barbaric? After closing the door at night, Zi Chen met the people of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Although there were only 3 floors, there were more than 100 people working here. They all had their own duties. Originally, there was 1 manager and 2 assistant managers. They were usually called Hall Master and Assistant Hall Master. There was a Hall Master on each floor. As for the Hall Master on the 3rd floor, the assistant manager was temporarily in charge. There weren't many things on the 3rd floor, but they were all high-quality goods. Usually, no one would pay attention to them. Because the 7 strength state were all inside, there were very few people outside. Therefore, the majority of the profits were still on the 1st and 2nd floors. After Miria's explanation, Zi Chen knew that the Hall of Spiritual Spells was just a business. It wasn't an official force. Other than their Hall of Spiritual Spells, there were 7 other halls of spiritual spells in this area and 4 halls of spell breaking. The number of halls of spiritual spells was double that of spell breaking. From this point, one could see how many spiritual spell practitioners there were and how precious spell breakers were. Between the 2 different spell halls, resources could be exchanged, but one had to go to a place called the Spirit Breaking Hall. That was the core of all resources, and any resource that one wanted had to be exchanged there. Zi Chen briefly listened to the names of some resources. Among them, the one that left the deepest impression was that the Spirit Breaker area had all sorts of resources, such as martial crystals, killing crystals, martial crystal sources, and so on. However, some of the rarer items might not be able to be exchanged even with resources. The sheer number of resources gave Zi Chen a headache. He had originally thought that there were only a few types of necessary energy. It was said that these purchasing matters were originally handled by Deputy Manager Frank. After Zi Chen killed Frank, there was no new Deputy Manager, so it was up to Zi Chen, the manager, or rather, the Hall Master, to handle these matters personally. How could Zi Chen know anything about purchasing? He was a little annoyed. If he had known that the guy would be useful, he would have let him live for a while. Is it very troublesome? Zi Chen looked at everyone. Everyone did not know how to answer. Miria said, "My lord, it's mainly some trivial matters and registration. It seems a lot, but it's actually not that troublesome. You just have to be careful." Zi Chen nodded and said, "All right, then I'll leave the purchasing matters to you." Huh! Miria was stunned. The expressions of the others also changed, and when they looked at Miria, there was obvious envy in their eyes. "What's with the her? It's you." Zi Chen rubbed his forehead and said, "I killed that idiot and got myself into trouble for no reason. You have to bear some responsibility." After that, Zi Chen turned and went upstairs. "If there's anything you can't handle, come to me. As for the other people and matters, everything will remain the same. You will remain the same as you were before, and so will your remuneration." "Yes." Seeing Zi Chen go upstairs, everyone immediately nodded in agreement. After Zi Chen left, someone immediately went to congratulate Miria. Miria blushed and said, "I'm just helping with the purchasing. He didn't make me a deputy palace master, so there's no need to congratulate me. Who doesn't know that the purchasing price is high? Miria, this time, my lord has taken a liking to you and asked you to help. You'll enjoy endless benefits, and when the time comes, don't forget us sisters. Also, you must seize this opportunity. Who knows, you might become a deputy palace master." Hearing her sisters speak, Miria seemed to have thought of something, and her pretty face immediately turned bright red. "What do you mean my lord has taken a liking to me? Although my lord is indeed handsome. Someone has become a phoenix, but do you really think that purchasing is something that everyone can do?" A mocking voice came from afar. "Keipe, what do you mean?" The woman who had brought Zi Chen upstairs looked at the man who spoke with dissatisfaction. "Do you really think that Frank has nothing to do all day?" The man named Keipe mocked. "Then you're too naive. You only see the surface, but you don't see how much is sacrificed for this matter. If you don't believe me, you'll know once you try." Before it even started, Miria became worried. She felt regret in her heart. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have opened her mouth. However, on second thought, the Lord had killed that fellow for her sake, so she should take responsibility for it. After all, her lord had already taken the biggest responsibility, so what was this small matter? The Hall of Spiritual Spells was the main way for people to exchange for resources, so there were many people who came every day. In less than 2 days, there weren't enough resources, and they needed to go purchase them. Miria took the resources and went to the spirit-breaking place alone. It was said that the reason why this place was called the spirit-breaking place was because the spirit-breaking place suppressed the spirit-breaking place. Obviously, no matter what, the spirit-breaking place wanted to suppress the spirit-breaking place. Zichen stayed in his office these few days. Behind him was his residence, where he could rest. Other than that, there was another residence, but he didn't go back. Miria took the resources and waited outside for 4 hours, but she didn't see the lord who was distributing the resources. After another 2 hours, she still didn't see him, so she could only bite the bullet and walk in to find him. She found the person, but the resources were gone. That person's attitude wasn't bad, and he asked her to come early tomorrow. Miria, who didn't get anything, caused some dissatisfied voices when she returned. Luckily, the remaining resources could last for about 2 days. The next day, before the sun rose, Miria arrived at the spirit-breaking place. After opening the door, she was the first to enter, but she was told that she didn't have an appointment, so she could only wait outside. Another few hours passed, and when she went in again, she was told that the resources had been distributed, and she had to come early the next day. The attitude was still good, but there was nothing. Miria went for another 2 days, but it was still the same. The things in the Hall of Spiritual Spells were obviously gone, which made the spirit casters very dissatisfied. At the same time, the people in the Hall of Spiritual Spells also expressed their dissatisfaction with her. Some even scolded her, saying that if she couldn't get the resources back, then the Hall of Spiritual Spells shouldn't be opened. But even so, it would affect some customers, causing the business here to be worse than before. Miria, who was scolded by everyone, cried. Helplessly, she could only ask Zichen for help. She knocked on Zichen's door. After entering, she took the initiative to close the door. Why are you here? Zichen smiled and looked at her. Miria pursed her red lips and looked at this handsome lord, thinking that she didn't lose out. Chapter 51:12. A naked body appeared in front of Zichen. This was the first time she had done such a thing. Miria's face was red, like a ripe fruit, very attractive. What are you doing? Hurry up and put it on. Zichen immediately covered his eyes, but it was obviously just for show. His soul power was much clearer. Hurry up. He urged again, very embarrassed. Sir, Miria pursed her lips, her red cheeks were full of grievance and guilt. If you have something to say it properly. You don't have to do this. Zichen hurriedly said. He tried his best to focus his perception on her cheeks, probing for changes in her expression and not her body. Thinking of her companion's suggestion, Miria was about to move forward again. Sir, some energy pushed Miria back. Zichen pretended to be angry. If you have something to say it first. Otherwise, I will throw you out. Miria couldn't see the change in Zichen's expression because his hand was covering his face. But from his tone, it seemed that he was really angry, so she could only put on her clothes again. Of course, the so-called clothes were just energy. If she was really thrown out, she would die of embarrassment. If you have something to say it properly. Why did you make such a fuss? Who taught you this? Zichen put down his hand and said somewhat speechlessly. Even now, his little heart was still thumping wildly. Sir. Miria put on her clothes and knelt down again. Zichen rubbed his forehead and said speechlessly, I say, can we talk properly first? Miria knelt on the ground and said with a choked voice, Sir, I messed up. Our Hall of Spiritual Law might have to close. The scene of Zichen turning pale with fright or flying into a rage as she had imagined did not happen. Zichen laughed when he heard this. The Hall of Spiritual Law has been open for such a long time and hasn't closed. You think you can close the door in just a few days? All right, get up first and tell me what happened. Miria did not dare to stand up. She just knelt there and told him everything. Zichen was even more speechless when he heard this. So, You listened to other people's advice and did this. Miria's face blushed again. At the same time, she lowered her voice and said, "Actually, I did it willingly." Zichen was even more speechless. He pretended not to hear anything. "It's not your fault. There's no need to be like this. Get up and come with me." Zichen stood up and stretched his body. He had only been idle for a few days, and now trouble had come knocking on his door. The two of them left this level and headed down. "Sir, our resources here." Zichen had just walked downstairs when a man came up to him, ready to report the situation here. Zichen waved his hand. "Got it. I'll deal with it right away." Miria led Zichen to the place where the spirit was broken. Along the way, Milia told Zichen some things to pay attention to. When they arrived at the place where the spirit was broken, there were already people there. Zichen was at the back of the line. Finally, Zichen arrived. The man glanced at Zichen, then at Miria. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked casually. Miria nodded. "Yes." Then she took out a list and handed it to the man. She was very nervous the entire time. After looking at the list, the man said casually, "You don't have any of these things. Come early tomorrow." Miria looked at Zichen for help. Every time she came here, it was like this. "Okay," Zichen said. "Then I'll make an appointment tomorrow morning." "Okay." The man nodded. "Don't I need to show proof?" Zichen asked. "No need. Just come directly," the man said casually. "That's not very good. How would you know if I made an appointment or not?" Zichen asked again. "I say, can you hurry up? Don't waste our time," someone in the back said impatiently. Zichen's dilly-dallying made the people in the back of the line unhappy. Zichen looked back at the crowd. "Didn't you hear?" he said. "I don't have any more resources. Come early tomorrow." As he spoke, Zichen turned to look at that person. "Don't you agree?" The man didn't know how to respond, so he didn't say anything. The others looked at Zichen with disdain. Where did this idiot come from? How could he be so blind? Not only was Zichen blind, he even took out the list and showed it to everyone. "If you don't believe me, take a look. I really don't have any more of these things. Come early tomorrow." Miria stood there, looking at her superior. She couldn't help but feel bitter. Her superior was such a valiant man, but now, *CK off. "You country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world." One of the people in the line was very impatient. He smashed the list in Zichen's hand, then walked over and took out another list. "Damn it, we ran into an idiot. Hurry up." The man picked up the list, glanced at it, and then began to help the other person take his share. Zichen walked over and just watched, not saying anything. After the man had taken all the shares, he stood up and spat viciously at Zichen. Zichen still didn't say anything, but the smile on his face was gone. The people in the back continued forward. The man glanced at the list, then continued to take his share. Zichen put his broken list back together. After the second man left, Zichen walked over. The man in the back was very unhappy. But when Zichen glanced at him, the cursing words he was about to say died in his throat. Zichen put down the list. The man glanced at it, then said with a cold face, "Didn't I tell you that there are no more resources today? Come early tomorrow." "I'll give you one more chance," said Zichen. "Reorganize your words. If you don't know how to reorganize them, then go call the manager out. He should know how to speak better than you." When the man heard this, he immediately became angry. "Who the fuck are you? How dare you talk to me like that?" He slammed the table and stood up, his eyes flashing with cold killing intent. "Do you want to die?" When the others saw this, they immediately retreated. Clearly, there was going to be a good show to watch. They looked at Zichen with ridicule in their eyes. "This idiot really hasn't seen the world. Of all the places to cause trouble, he dares to cause trouble here. Isn't he looking to die?" Zichen said calmly, "Earlier, you said there were no more resources, but you gave me enough for 2 people. So now I'm here to exchange. Who the fuck do you think you are?" The man pointed at Zichen's nose. "If I want to exchange for you, I'll exchange for you. If I don't want to exchange for you, I won't exchange for you." I've rejected you time and time again to give you face, but you don't know what's good for you. Let me reorganize my words. See? This is what I've organized. Zichen didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed. He grabbed the man's collar and pulled him out. You should have said that earlier. The smile on Zichen's face didn't fade. He punched the man's head. Bam! Chapter 51:13. Dong. The impact was so strong that even the spirit breaker area was trembling. When the others saw this, their expressions changed. This guy was too arrogant. He dared to attack at the spirit breaker area. This was the official force of Pofa City. Who dared to behave atrociously here? Did he have a death wish? You're dead. The guy who was hit in the head and was dizzy was not afraid at all. He laughed and said, haha, you're dead. Miria looked at Zichen worriedly. She regretted and blamed herself. It was because of her incompetence that Sir was dragged into this. This was troublesome. Zichen did not say a word and punched the second time. Dong. Ripples spread out and the spirit breaker area continued to tremble. The aura of this person was obviously getting weaker. Haha, kill me if you can. You're just punching me and not killing me. I look down on you. His face was completely stuck to the ground, but he was still fearless and arrogant. Zichen punched the third time. Dong. The stone floor cracked and spread out like a spider web. Those who were shocked finally came to their senses and shouted at Zichen to stop. Of course, they were only shouting. No one stepped forward at this moment. They just shouted and cheered. Anyway, this guy was going to die anyway. Come on, kill me or I'll look down on you. He was just a 5 forces state cultivator. After he died, there would not be a corpse left, but he still dared to shout at this moment. The reason was that he believed that Zichen would not dare to kill anyone here. Zichen stood up and stopped punching. The guy sat on the ground and spat at Zichen. I look down on you. What can you do about it? He looked disdainful. Are you trying to scare me? Let me tell you, as long as I'm here, you can forget about exchanging resources. Not even a single one. He then pointed at Miria. Even if you personally put her naked on my bed, I will not exchange it for you. Zichen raised his hand and a ray of light flew past. The guy's arm flew out. He shrieked, how dare you? How dare you do such a thing? Zichen didn't say anything. The second light flashed past his body, and his other arm was gone. He screamed, all right, kill me if you can. Come on. Zichen continued to wave his hand for the third time. His face was still expressionless. One of his opponent's legs was gone, and he fell to the ground unsteadily. Come on, you still have a leg. The other party was still shouting with a ferocious expression. Pu. In Zichen's hand, light flashed once more. After the last leg left the body, it turned into light and disappeared. Come on, there's still the body. The other party was still shouting, if you have the ability, then separate the body as well. Zichen smiled and said, there's no rush. I'll let you recover for a while before we continue. Wouldn't it be too boring to just die like this? Zichen squatted down, took out a strand of energy, and handed it to him. You can refine it now. The other party mocked. What? Are you afraid that I'm dead? You'll be implicated too. Let me tell you, even if I don't die, you'll die 100 times for attacking me here. The dignity of the spirit breaking site is not to be trampled on. Zichen said calmly, you're thinking too much. The others looked at this scene in shock, thinking that this guy's guts were a little too big. However, they soon realized where the problem lay. Why didn't anyone come out to stop such a big thing? The other party seemed to have realized this as well, and shouted, guards, someone is causing trouble here. The surroundings were quiet, and no one responded. Where are the guards? Hurry up and come out. Can't you see that someone is causing trouble? The other party shouted again, his voice extremely loud. In a room upstairs at the spirit breaking site, a man was leaning against a chair. Of course, he heard the commotion from before, but he didn't go out. In front of him stood a person who was reporting the latest situation. Billy's 4 limbs have been chopped off by someone. Billy is still shouting at the moment, the other party said respectfully. Sir, should we let the guards do something? Do what? Do you want to die? The man said calmly, even if all of you go, you won't be a match for him. He is. The other party was puzzled. You don't need to know who he is. Since someone is using Billy's hand to cause trouble, let them deal with it themselves. It doesn't matter who lives or dies. But to use someone else to kill someone, do you think I'm stupid? Seeing the change in the other party's expression, the man continued, in order to prevent you from reporting, you will stay here and wait for the results. Cold sweat appeared on the other party's forehead, and he hurriedly said, I don't dare. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Where is everyone? Where the hell did they all go? Billy was still shouting. I didn't see them. Did they almost destroy the spirit-breaking site? The surroundings were quiet, and there was still no one around. Guards! Billy was shouting at the top of his lungs, but the fierceness on his face was obviously less. The bystanders were also puzzled. Why was it like this? Chen kindly reminded him, you need to replenish your life force, or you won't be able to hold on until reinforcements arrive. He kindly gave him a stream of pure energy. Billy didn't say anything and ate it. No matter what, he had to save his life first. As expected of pure energy, his life force quickly recovered. His arm grew out first. At this moment, Chen continued to attack. With a puff, the arm that just grew out was chopped off again. Billy shrieked, Are you crazy? Why did you attack again? Chen explained, I only asked you to save your life, not to recover. Billy could only shout again, calling for reinforcements. The onlookers put away their sneers, and their expressions became strange. Until now, no one had come to the spirit-breaking site. This was very strange. Could it be that this person had a powerful background, so no one dared to attack? Milia was also very confused. To her, this should be the most sacred place in Pofa City. No matter if you were a dragon or a tiger outside, you had to lower your head here. This was also the reason why everyone here was so arrogant. She looked around and saw a guard. That guard stood in the distance and didn't come closer. As if he sensed Milia's gaze, he quickly retreated and disappeared. Why didn't he come? After shouting many times, no one came. Billy was a little panicked. Sir, save me. Someone has disregarded the rules and started a massacre here. Billy could only shout again. Chen narrowed his eyes. Could it be this, sir? Me. What a scandal, what a scandal. A cold snort was heard, and a person walked out from the depths. He looked at Chen and said coldly, How dare you cause trouble here? Men, take him down. Chen looked at the sir and suddenly laughed. More than 10 people ran out from inside. There were 4th strength realm cultivators and 5th strength realm cultivators. They immediately attacked Chen. Buzz. Chen stood there, motionless. The spirit of massacre turned into a stream of light and swept past everyone's bodies. Then, one by one, the guards' legs were chopped off, and they fell to the ground one by one. Chapter 51:14. Chen's methods were so terrifying that all the onlookers were stunned. They retreated again and again. The mockery and disdain from before had long disappeared. Billy, whose limbs had been chopped off, fell to the ground. At this moment, he felt that something was wrong. He cried for help, Sir, save me. At this moment, he was really scared. You're the one who did this. Chen's eyes turned cold as he looked at the 6 Forces Realm Cultivator. What did you say? The 6 Forces State Cultivator said indifferently, You're causing trouble in the Spirit Breaker area. You're courting death. Guards, this person has disregarded the rules of the Spirit Breaker area and trampled on the dignity of the Spirit Breaker area. Kill him. His shout didn't have any effect at all. Other than those who had lost their legs and were wailing on the ground, no one else came. Hobson, how dare you? You don't even want to protect the dignity of the Spirit Breaker area? A hint of anger appeared on the 6 Forces State Cultivator's face. A punch came at him. Bam! The 6 Forces State Cultivator's body bent like a shrimp. Then, Chen threw another uppercut. The 6 Forces State Cultivator was sent flying. He spat out blood and a few teeth. The Six Forces State cultivator fell to the ground and continued to shout. However, the other people in the Spirit Breaker area pretended not to hear him. They all pretended to be deaf and mute. From this point, it could be seen that in this place of spirit destruction, it was definitely not a monolithic block of iron. Therefore, Zichen stepped forward and kicked the Six Forces State cultivator until his face was bruised and swollen. How dare you trample on the dignity of the Spirit Breaker area? While the Six Forces State cultivator was wailing, he did not forget to threaten Zichen. Zichen smiled coldly and started to attack. Poof! One of his arms was gone. He was immediately covered in blood. Compared to Billy, who was in the Five Forces state, this was much more miserable. The Six Forces State cultivator recalled Billy's miserable state and immediately had a look of horror on his face. Billy did not have a real body and had lost his limbs. As long as he used pure energy, he would be able to recover quickly. However, he was different. He had a real body. Once his limbs were gone, it would be a serious injury. Even if he used true energy, it would take him a long time to recover. My lord, save me. The Six Forces Realm cultivator shouted at the top of his lungs. At this moment, he was also afraid. As for Billy, he was only at the Five Forces boundary. Originally, he had been relying on this Six Forces boundary. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? The others were shocked. Not to mention why the situation had turned out this way, just the battle prowess of this lord was already very powerful. Pu. The other arm was gone. From the looks of it, the other two legs wouldn't be able to last much longer. The other people who were originally lying on the ground and wailing all sensibly crawled to the side, not daring to block the way. They didn't dare to wail anymore, fearing that Zichen would make an example of them. Stop. Finally, a dignified voice sounded. An old man came and looked coldly at Zichen. You dare to attack me here? How dare you? It was still the same excuse, which was to convict him as soon as he arrived. Zichen said, So, you're the one behind the scenes? The old man was enraged. Impudent. What do you think this place is? Zichen said, A place for trading, a place for exchanging resources. Since you know this, why did you break the rules? You knowingly broke the rules. How should you be punished? The old man's eyes were cold and aggressive. Zichen looked back at Billy and asked, Do you know what this place is? Billy trembled and didn't know how to answer. Zichen answered his own question, This is a place for trading, a place for exchanging resources. This was his answer before, and now he said it again. This made Billy even more confused. What did Zichen mean by telling him this? And you know this, but you deliberately don't give me resources and deliberately make things difficult for me. In your eyes, is there still a place for breaking the spirit? Are there still rules? Facing Zichen's reprimand, Billy's eyes widened, but he didn't know what to say. Breaking the rules knowingly is a crime that even death can't wipe out. Killing intent flashed in his eyes, and the slaughter spirit appeared again. This time, it directly pierced through Billy's head. His attack was sharp and decisive. Billy's eyes widened. He didn't expect that the other party would kill him at this time. He didn't die even after withstanding so much pressure, but now he was dead. He couldn't figure it out. There was no need to think. His body turned into light and dissipated. You're courting death. The old man was furious and rushed towards Zichen. Zichen's face was also filled with anger. This kind of petty person was the most annoying. He directly punched. A powerful force flowed between the fists, and at the same time, the crisscrossing rules appeared. With a huge tremor, Zichen's body slid back. Looking at the old man again, there were 7 types of power around him, releasing a powerful aura. This scene caused quite a commotion. Everyone was incomparably shocked. Zichen looked at the old man and said, I originally thought that you were at least a spellbreaker, but I didn't expect that you were just a spirit spellmaster. You don't have to thank me for killing a person who deserved to die, although I did it to help the spirit-breaking office. Ignoring the old man's increasingly ugly expression, Zichen looked at the 6th strength realm cultivator. That guy didn't care about the rules, and disregarded the dignity and face of the spirit-breaking office. You, as the master, not only did you not stop him, You even went from bad to worse. Zichen said, "Do you know what your actions are called? This is like, the trust and faith that the spirit-breaking office has accumulated over the years was thrown to the ground, and when you came, not only did you not pick it up, you stepped on it and spat on it. Tell me, what's the point of having you at the spirit-breaking office?" The slaughter spirit appeared again. "You're courting death." The 7-strength realm cultivator was furious, and blocked in front of the slaughter spirit. Zichen smiled coldly, and a light flew out from his sea of consciousness. This was his spell breaker power. Shua. Like a sword light, it went straight for the old man. The reason why spellbreakers were superior here was because of their strong and special soul power. Now, the 7-strength realm cultivator had no choice but to give up blocking the slaughter spirit and form a defensive stance. Poof! He blocked Zichen's attack, but the 6-strength realm cultivator couldn't. The slaughter spirit directly pierced through his mind. Soul power. He's the shadow destroyer, Zichen. The onlookers finally reacted, and someone immediately exclaimed loudly. As the purchasing staff of the Hall of Spiritual Spells, they rarely came out and had their own place. Although they had never seen Zichen before, they had heard of Zichen's name. Now that they saw a person with 2 types of energy, they immediately guessed his identity. The 6-strength realm cultivator was dead. As expected of a shadow destroyer, he completely disregarded the rules. The 7-strength realm cultivator was full of murderous intent. Zichen said indifferently, "I'll say the same thing again, no need to thank me. You can disregard the dignity of the spirit-breaking office and even step on it, but I won't. After all, I still have to exchange for resources here." After speaking, Zichen turned to the crowd and said, "Everyone, there are no more resources for today. Come back tomorrow. Of course, when you come back tomorrow, remember to leave my spot empty. After all, I made an appointment in advance, and it's been a few days." Chapter 51:15. With that, Zichen turned and left. No one dared to stop him. The realm of 7 strengths wanted to stop him, but he knew his own strength. It would be difficult to kill Zichen now. He could only watch coldly as Zichen left. At the same time, he was thinking of another way. Miria followed behind Zichen. Even though they were far away from the spirit-breaking chamber, she still felt like she was dreaming. He killed someone in the spirit-breaking chamber and left so easily. Inside the spirit-breaking chamber, the others were still looking at each other, not understanding the situation. At this moment, someone finally walked out. "Men, hurry up and take care of the body. This is a place of business. How can there be blood everywhere?" The realm of 7 strengths looked back at Hobson and said coldly, "Hobson, someone came to the spirit-breaking chamber to cause trouble and trampled on the dignity of the spirit-breaking chamber. How could you let him go?" The realm of 6 strengths named Hobson said calmly, "Is that so? How bold. Men, investigate this thoroughly. Once the truth is found, there will be no tolerance." Then he looked at the people standing there. "What are you doing here?" One of them cupped his fist and said, "Sir, we are here to exchange for resources. We haven't exchanged for today's resources yet. Sir, the matter has been investigated. Under Jimmy's instructions, Billy has targeted spiritual spell hall number 4 time and time again, causing them to be on the verge of closing down. This time, the new hall master personally asked for an explanation, but he was still targeted. That's why he fought." The speaker's voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. It was loud enough for everyone to hear him clearly. In such a short time, the truth had been discovered. Moreover, there was a hidden meaning in his words. Many people reacted in hindsight. Hobson's expression changed when he heard this. "What? Something like this can happen in our spirit-breaking chamber? What kind of situation did you push him into that he would kill someone in anger? Our spirit-breaking chamber has always been fair and just. How can we allow such a person to exist? Kick out all the people who helped the Avildor and never hire them again." "Yes." The person immediately nodded. "How dare you, Hobson?" he cried. "Do you know what you're doing?" The 7th Force Realm cultivator angrily shouted, "That guy didn't put the Spirit Breaker department in his eyes at all. He threw the department's face to the ground and kept trampling on it. But you didn't go up and pick it up. You actually trampled on it a few more times." Hobson suddenly raised his hand, and the being stopped. Just when everyone thought that Hobson was going to change his mind, he said, "Remember, when you drive them out, break their legs. Tell them not to be lackeys anymore." "Understood." The person turned around and left. Hobson looked back at the realm of 7 forces and said, "I don't care about face. All I know is that the Spirit Breaker office is a place of business, and we must maintain absolute fairness. I don't care what kind of personal grudges you have, or how you want to settle them. I don't care if you fight to the death, but don't use public power for personal gain. It's a pity that the two of them are already dead. Otherwise, I would have let them know the price of using public service for personal gain. I guarantee that I'll make them wish they were dead." At the end of his sentence, Hobson's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. The other people who had come to exchange for resources couldn't help but shiver. It was obvious that this person was truly angry. When Zi Chen and Miria returned, they saw that many people had gathered at the entrance. These people had all come to exchange for resources, but unfortunately, there were no more resources that they needed. Thus, they were all very dissatisfied and had gathered here to demand an explanation. When they saw that Zi Chen had returned, they all looked at Zi Chen. Many of these people recognized Zi Chen, and their expressions all changed. When the people in the Hall of Spiritual Spells called out Hall Master, their expressions changed even more. They clearly hadn't expected that Zi Chen would come here. Zi Chen looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, there's been a small incident. At the latest, all the resources will be back in the day after tomorrow." Without waiting for anyone to ask, Zi Chen said, "Of course, it could also be tomorrow. If you want to wait patiently, you can come back tomorrow to exchange for resources. I'll give you a 5% discount on all the resources." This discount was very attractive. After all, the Hall of Spiritual Spells always had a fixed price. "What if the resources don't come back tomorrow?" someone asked worriedly. Zi Chen smiled and said, "Then come back the day after tomorrow. I'll give everyone a 10% discount." This made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. This discount was absolutely unprecedented. For a moment, everyone hoped that the resources wouldn't come back tomorrow. Then, the day after tomorrow, they would have a shocking price. As the Hall Master, Zi Chen naturally had the absolute right to speak and set the price. Even if the others had some complaints, they didn't dare to say anything. "Call me tomorrow morning. We'll go again." Zi Chen looked at Miria, and the latter nodded repeatedly. Zi Chen went back upstairs. Miria continued working. Some colleagues came over to ask what had happened. After Miria told them everything, everyone was very surprised. For many years, they had never heard of anyone who dared to make a move in the spirit-breaking area and was able to escape unscathed. The next day, as soon as the sky brightened, Miria came to call Zi Chen. The two of them were the first to arrive at the spirit-breaking area. During this time, the door was closed. After a while, other people came. When they saw Zi Chen in front of them, Zi Chen's face changed. They had already heard about what had happened yesterday. And that existence who had spat at Zi Chen before, after hearing that Zi Chen had killed someone, was so scared that he didn't dare to come today. The door opened. Zi Chen and Miria walked in. A newcomer was standing there. Miria immediately went forward and took out the list that she had made last night. The newcomer looked at the list and then looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen didn't say anything. He just looked behind him. If he couldn't get the resources today, these people wouldn't be able to get them either. If someone else targeted him, then he didn't mind continuing to attack. After all, he had the right of reason. "Wait a moment." The newcomer didn't make things difficult for him. After saying that, he quickly left. Miria, who had been very nervous, let out a sigh of relief. At the very least, this was much better than she had been in the past. The newcomer took the list and went to look for Hobson. In the end, he was scolded by Hobson. "You're here to exchange resources. Now that you don't give them to others, you want to die. If you want to die, then die far away. Don't drag me down with you. Damn it, did you forget those two from yesterday?" Under Hobson's curses, the other party went back down and returned with all sorts of resources. Looking at the resources, Miria was so happy that she almost cried. The Hall of Magic could be maintained. Zichen didn't say much. Since the people at the spirit breaking area wanted to pretend that nothing had happened yesterday, he didn't mind. Everything was back on track, that's all. So when Miria returned with the resources, everyone saw the smile on her face and couldn't smile. Because if the goods came tomorrow, there would be a 10% discount. Miria smiled. My lord said that although the resources have come back, there will still be a 5% discount tomorrow. Zichen returned to his residence. In his heart, he wondered if he should find a deputy hall master. Chapter 51:16. With that thought in mind, Zichen decided to take action. He left his residence and went to find Kant. He told him why he was here. You want me to be the deputy manager? Kant was stunned. He had only just found out that Zichen was going to be the manager of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. He was surprised at that time. Why would a spell breaker be so bored? You can also call me deputy manager. Zichen said, don't think that you can't do it just because you have a high position. I believe in you. Kant's mouth twitched. He was a 6 Forces state spellbreaker. He was qualified to be a manager. Deputy manager? A high position. But looking at the person in front of him, he decided not to argue. First of all, he couldn't argue. After all, Zichen was the reason why he could reach the 6 Forces state. Second, he had argued with Zichen and his friends before. In the end, none of them got the upper hand. Why? Although he didn't argue, he still wanted to know the reason. Why did the Hall of Spiritual Spells need a 6 Forces state spellbreaker to be the deputy manager? Since I'm the manager, I have to manage it well. Zichen's words made Kant smile. With Zichen's combat power, he could reap a lot of benefits just by going outside the city. Why would he care about such a small amount of resources? You don't want to? Zichen looked at Kant. Kant quickly stopped smiling. I'm happy. I'm happy. Then, Zichen led Kant to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. As they walked, Zichen said, you're a spellbreaker. No matter your identity or position, you should have a high position. So, I'll leave the purchasing task to you. Kant nodded silently. When they arrived at the Hall of Spiritual Spells, he was surprised to see so many people. It seemed that business was very good. I gave them a 5% discount. After all, they've been waiting for a few days, Zichen said. Kant glanced at Zichen. He seemed to understand Zichen's intention. After Zichen introduced Kant to everyone was stunned. A 6 Forces realm lawbreaker came here to be a deputy hall master. Normally, he might not be willing to be the hall master, right? The face of this palace master was simply too big. But while they were shocked, some people also subconsciously looked at Miria. Previously, everyone thought that Miria would become the vice palace master. After all, she had always been in charge of purchasing, although she had never completed the task. Zichen led Kant upstairs. It seems like some people's hopes of flying to the top have been dashed. In the end, they are still nothing more than chickens. Someone sneered. Kepe, what do you mean? Immediately, a woman said in dissatisfaction. Nothing much. I'm just saying that not everyone can become a vice palace master. Coupe smiled coldly and turned to leave. Miria was so angry that her eyes turned red, but she couldn't refute. She could only sulk by herself. She had never thought of becoming a vice palace master. She just wanted to repay the Lord and do something for him. After arriving at Zichen's office, Kant sat down and asked, it's just a small place. What do you plan to do? Help run the business better. If the big shots inside take a fancy to me, they might take me deeper. In the past, Zichen didn't even dare to dream of going deeper. But now, it was different. He had advanced to the 6 Forces realm. Next, it was very likely that he would reach the 7 Forces realm, the 8 Forces realm, or even the 9 Forces realm. Therefore, he had to think about things that he didn't think about before. Whether or not he could go back, he had to go deeper and find out. And this Hall of Spiritual Spells was an opportunity. What do you plan to do? Kant asked again. The profit of the various resources in the Hall of Spiritual Spells is about 10%. I will lower it a little here, but the main thing is the spirit breaking section. I hope you can go and negotiate with them so that the purchase price can be lower. This was a plan that Zi Chen had thought of long ago. As long as the price was lowered, he would lower the price accordingly. The business would be very good. And when the business was good, the total profit would naturally increase. I don't have the ability to do that. I don't know anyone there. Kant smiled bitterly. No rush. You can go and buy for a while. We'll talk about it when you're familiar with it. Zi Chen said, during this time, I will also go to the other halls of spiritual spells to take a look. Okay. The two of them settled down for the time being. Because of the discount, business was very good. The next day, Miria took the list and brought Kant to the spirit-breaking section. During this time, Miria was very nervous. Because spirit breakers were born to be superior and were said to be difficult to deal with, she was silent the whole time. Occasionally, Kant would ask some questions, and she would answer whatever he asked. She would not say a word more. Kant thought that she was just so cold, so he did not say anything more. When it came to the exchange of resources, there were no problems. Kant stood to the side and watched. It was just that many people looked at him strangely. Because Kant did not hide the aura of the spirit breakers, for fear that others would not know. This was also Zi Chen's intention. Zi Chen said that when they were outside, especially at the spirit breaking section, they should not be stingy with their identity. Sure enough, just as the two of them were about to leave, a person came up to them. My master invites you. Do you have time? The person bowed respectfully to Kant. Kant nodded slightly, then said to Miria, you go back first. Don't wait for me. Miria immediately bowed and left. Kant followed the person upstairs. Hobson did not dare to be careless and stood at the stairs to welcome them. Lord Spirit Breakers, why have you come to my spirit breaking section? Hobson was also in the six powers state, but he was a spirit caster. Even though he had a high status, he did not dare to put on airs in front of Kant. Zi Chen was not here. If he saw this scene, he would probably regret it to death. If he had known that this would happen, he would have called Kant over directly. Why would he have gone through so much trouble? I am the new deputy manager of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Today, I am here to learn how to make purchases. Oh, you should know about the Hall of Spiritual Spells. My master is called Zi Chen. Hobson was shocked, but he did not show it on his face. He immediately smiled and said that he knew, and that there was some misunderstanding between them. After that, Hobson invited Kangda into his room. While the two of them were chatting, Hobson casually brought up the grudge that had happened in the past. It turned out that a person called Corpay came to find Billy and told him about the situation at the Hall of Spiritual Spells. For example, Frank was killed and an insensible girl was in charge. Kant heard this and said, I didn't know much about this place before, so I don't understand. Everyone is doing business. Why would Billy stand up for someone else? Could there be other interests involved? Hobson looked at Kant with an awkward expression, as if he was hesitating about whether to say it or not. Lord, you can just tell me the truth. After all, I am also a businessman, Kant said with a smile. It seemed that Hobson was flattered by being called Lord. He said two words, commission. Kant smiled. Zi Chen had predicted this.